Welcome back, guys. This is Potter Fanfic Hub. Here we explore powerful Harry Potter what-if stories and hidden magic. What if 7-year-old Harry Potter became the youngest dragon rider in wizarding history? If you enjoy epic magical videos, subscribe to Potter Fanfic Hub. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1: The Forbidden Forest Secret. The summer sun hung low over Privet Drive, casting long shadows that stretched across perfectly manicured lawns like dark fingers reaching for something they could never quite grasp. Number 4 looked exactly like every other house on the street, neat, ordinary, painfully normal. But behind the closed curtains of the smallest bedroom, a 7-year-old boy with messy black hair and broken glasses sat cross-legged on a thin mattress, staring at the crack in the ceiling that had become his only companion. Harry Potter traced the crack with his eyes for the 100th time that day, following its jagged path from the light fixture to the corner where the wall met the ceiling. Somewhere downstairs, he could hear Aunt Petunia's shrill voice complaining about the state of the garden, and Uncle Vernon's rumbling responses that sounded like rocks grinding together. They were the sounds of his life, the background noise to his existence, as constant and unwelcome as the hunger that gnawed at his stomach. Today had been worse than most. Dudley and his gang had found him behind the garage, where Harry had been trying to catch spiders in a jar just to have something to look at that wasn't his own reflection in the dusty mirror. The spiders were small and brown, nothing special, but they moved with a purpose that Harry envied. They knew exactly where they were going, even if it was just to spin another web in another forgotten corner. "You're so weird, Potter," Dudley had said, his piggy eyes narrowing with that particular brand of cruelty that only children who've never been told no can possess. "Looking at bugs like they're your friends. Even the spiders don't want you." Harry had learned long ago not to respond. Any reaction was fuel for Dudley's fire, and the bigger boy had friends now, Piers and Dennis and Malcolm, all of them just as large and just as mean. They'd taken his jar of spiders and smashed it against the garage wall, watching with delight as the tiny creatures scattered in all directions. Then they'd chased him through the garden, through Mrs. Figg's yard, past the park where the swings hung empty and waiting, all the way to the edge of the woods that bordered Little Whinging. The woods were forbidden, of course. Every child in the neighborhood knew that. There were stories about the woods, stories about strange lights flickering between the trees, about sounds that couldn't be explained by any animal native to Surrey, about children who went in and never came out the same, if they came out at all. The adults told the stories to keep children away, but Harry had always suspected they were just stories. After all, what could possibly be in a patch of woods in suburban England that was worth being afraid of? But today, with Dudley's gang closing in and the prospect of another beating looming, Harry had made a choice. He'd run straight into the woods, ignoring the shouts behind him, ignoring the voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like Aunt Petunia telling him he was being foolish and reckless and would probably get himself killed, and wouldn't that just be typical? The woods had swallowed him whole. Harry had run until his lungs burned and his legs screamed for mercy, stumbling over roots and ducking under branches that seemed to reach for him with grasping fingers. He'd fallen twice, scraping his knees and tearing his already threadbare shirt, but he'd gotten back up and kept running. The sounds of pursuit had faded quickly. Dudley and his friends weren't exactly built for endurance, but Harry hadn't stopped until he was deep enough that the light from the outside world barely penetrated the dense canopy above. And that was when everything had changed. Now, hours later, Harry sat with his back pressed against the rough bark of an ancient oak, trying to make sense of what had happened. The woods were different here. They felt different. The air was thicker somehow, heavy with a scent that reminded him of rain even though the sky was clear above the treetops. The sounds were wrong too, birds that sang notes no bird should know, rustling in the underbrush that seemed almost intelligent. Harry had been walking in circles for what felt like hours, trying to find his way back to the edge of the woods, but every path he took seemed to lead him deeper instead of out. It was as if the forest itself was guiding him somewhere, pulling him forward with invisible strings. He tried to go back the way he'd come, but the path had vanished behind him, swallowed by undergrowth that hadn't been there moments before. A normal 7-year-old would have been terrified. Harry was scared. He'd be lying if he said he wasn't, but beneath the fear was something else. Something that felt almost like excitement. The woods were strange and mysterious, and for the first time in his life, Harry felt like he was part of something that mattered. Something that was just for him. He pushed himself to his feet, brushing dirt and leaves from his clothes. His stomach rumbled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since the crust of bread he'd snagged from the kitchen that morning. Uncle Vernon kept the cupboards locked now, ever since Harry had accidentally shrunk one of Dudley's sweaters in the wash. Harry hadn't meant to do it, he still didn't understand how he'd done it, just that he'd been thinking about how much he hated that stupid sweater with its stupid stripes and its stupid reminder that Dudley got new clothes while Harry wore hand-me-downs that smelled like mothballs and despair, and then it had been tiny, too small even for the baby dolls that Dudley had long since abandoned. The wardrobe door had slammed so hard it had cracked the frame. Uncle Vernon had blamed Harry, of course. He always blamed Harry. But now, standing in the middle of these impossible woods, Harry didn't feel quite so alone. He felt watched, but not in the way that made his skin crawl. The watching felt warm, almost curious, like the forest was examining him and finding him acceptable. The path, Harry whispered to himself, squinting through his broken glasses at the trail ahead. The lenses were held together with Scotch tape, and one of the arms was bent so badly that it permanently tilted the frames to the right. He'd asked for new glasses once, back when he was 5 and still foolish enough to believe that asking might actually result in getting. The memory of Uncle Vernon's purple face and the resulting week in the cupboard still made Harry flinch. He walked for what felt like another hour, though time moved strangely in the forest. The light never seemed to change, always that same golden-green twilight, always the same dappled shadows dancing across the forest floor. Harry's legs ached and his stomach felt like it was trying to digest itself, but something kept him moving forward. Something important was waiting for him. He could feel it in his bones, in the strange tingle that had started at the base of his spine and was now spreading through his entire body like warm honey. And then he saw it. The clearing opened up suddenly, as if the trees had simply decided to step back and let him pass. Harry stopped at the edge, his breath catching in his throat at the sight before him. The dragon was enormous, larger than anything Harry had ever seen or even imagined. Its scales were a deep, shimmering green that seemed to absorb the light around it, and its eyes were the color of molten gold. It lay on its side in the center of the clearing, its massive chest rising and falling with labored breaths that stirred the leaves at Harry's feet. Its wings were spread awkwardly. One of them bent at an angle that made Harry's stomach turn, and there was a wound on its side that glistened with blood that was wrong. Dark and thick and threaded through with something that looked like shadows, made solid. Harry should have run. Every instinct he had screamed at him to turn and flee, to get as far away from this impossible creature as fast as his legs could carry him. But he didn't run. He couldn't. His feet were rooted to the spot, his eyes locked on the dragon's golden gaze. The dragon was looking at him, watching him. And there was something in its eyes that Harry recognized. Pain. Loss. The desperate hope of something that knows it's dying but doesn't want to die alone. "Hello?" Harry said softly, taking a tentative step into the clearing. His voice was barely a whisper, but the dragon's ears twitched at the sound. I won't hurt you. I promise." The dragon made a sound, a low, rumbling noise that Harry felt in his chest rather than heard with his ears. It wasn't threatening. It was almost welcoming. Harry moved closer, his fears slowly giving way to something else. Something that felt like compassion. The dragon was hurt, terribly hurt, and it needed help. Harry didn't know how to help a dragon. He didn't even know how to help himself most of the time, but he had to try. He had to. As he approached, Harry noticed a nest. It was built into the base of an enormous tree, woven from branches and leaves and something that shimmered faintly in the dim light. And in the center of the nest, nestled among soft moss and what looked like silver silk, was a single egg. The egg was about the size of Harry's torso, perfectly round, and its surface seemed to shift and ripple with color. One moment it was deep purple, the next a rich midnight blue, and then a shade of black so deep it seemed to swallow the light. Patterns moved across its surface like clouds across the sky, constantly changing, never still. Harry's hand reached out before he could stop himself, and he touched the egg. The dragon let out a sound that was almost like a sigh, a sound of relief, of acceptance, of something passing from one being to another. Harry looked up, and the dragon's golden eyes met his. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, and Harry felt something pass between them. Something ancient and powerful and deeply, profoundly right. Dragon blood dripped from the wound in the dragon's side, pooling on the forest floor. Harry watched as the blood seemed to pulse, to glow with a light of its own, and then it began to move. The blood flowed toward him like a living thing, winding its way across the moss and leaves until it reached the egg. It rose up, defying gravity, and touched the egg's surface. The egg absorbed the blood, and for a moment, everything was still. And then the egg began to glow. Harry stumbled back, his heart hammering in his chest. The light was growing brighter, pulsing in time with something that felt like a heartbeat. The dragon's eyes were fixed on him, and Harry could see something new in them now. Something that looked almost like pride. The light intensified until Harry had to shield his eyes, and then, with a sound like crystal breaking and bells singing all at once, the egg began to crack. Tiny lines spiderwebbed across the surface, each one glowing with white gold fire. Harry watched, frozen, as the cracks widened and deepened, and then a piece of shell fell away. Then another. And another. What emerged from the egg was the most beautiful thing Harry had ever seen. The baby dragon was no bigger than a large dog, its scales a deep midnight blue that shifted to purple in the light. Its wings were folded tightly against its back, and its eyes, its eyes were the most incredible shade of silver, like liquid moonlight made solid. It blinked slowly, looking around the clearing with a dazed expression, and then its gaze landed on Harry. Something clicked into place inside Harry's chest. A connection that felt like it had always been there, just waiting to be discovered. The dragon took a wobbly step toward him, then another, and then it was pressing its small, warm head against Harry's chest, making a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a chirp. "You're beautiful," Harry whispered, his voice thick with emotion he didn't understand. "You're so beautiful." The dragon made another sound, and Harry felt a wave of warmth wash over him. It was like being wrapped in a blanket on a cold night, like drinking hot chocolate after playing in the snow, like every good thing he'd ever felt condensed into a single moment of pure, uncomplicated joy. And then the pain hit. Harry cried out, doubling over as fire raced through his left arm. It felt like his skin was being ripped open, like something was being carved into him with a white-hot blade. The dragon made a distressed sound, pressing closer, and Harry could feel its concern through their connection, could feel the creature's fear that it had somehow hurt him. "It's okay," Harry gasped, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "It's okay. I'm okay." He looked down at his arm, and what he saw made his breath catch. Runes were appearing on his skin, glowing, silver-blue lines that seemed to burn themselves into his flesh. They were beautiful and terrifying all at once, a language he couldn't read but somehow understood. The runes spiraled around his forearm, weaving together in patterns that spoke of power and purpose and destiny. When the burning finally faded, Harry was left with a mark unlike anything he'd ever seen. The runes had settled into his skin, silver lines that seemed to pulse faintly with their own light. They curled and twisted, forming a shape that looked almost like a dragon in flight, wings spread wide and tail streaming behind. "Wow!" Harry breathed, flexing his fingers and watching the runes shift with his movement. "What are you?" the dragon chirped, and Harry understood. The answer without words. They were the symbol of a bond. A bond between dragon and rider. A bond that was now part of him, part of his very soul, and nothing would ever break it. He looked up at the great green dragon, and he saw the truth in its eyes. The creature was dying. The wound on its side was festering, the shadow threads spreading slowly across its scales. The dragon had stayed alive just long enough to see its hatchlings safe. Just long enough to find someone worthy of the bond. "Don't go," Harry whispered, reaching out to touch the dragon's nose. Please don't go. The dragon made a sound, a soft, rumbling thing that vibrated through Harry's entire body. And then, impossibly, he heard a voice in his head. It was deep and ancient, full of the wisdom of centuries, and it spoke with a kindness that brought tears to Harry's eyes. You are the one I have been waiting for. The one who would come. The one who would see the dragon and not the monster. The one who would help and not harm. I don't understand, Harry said, shaking his head. I'm just Harry. I'm nobody. You are everything, the dragon's voice said. You are the beginning of something new. The last rider has returned. The bond has been reforged. And I am honored to have been the one to see it. The dragon's eyes began to dim, the golden light fading to something dull and distant. Harry felt his heart clench, felt the grief that was already beginning to build in his chest. Please, he said again. Don't leave me. Please, I don't want to be alone again. I don't want to be alone. Alone? The dragon's voice was barely a whisper now, fading like a candle in the wind. Child of my heart, you will never be alone again. You have been chosen for a purpose greater than you can imagine. The hatchling will guide you. The bond will sustain you. And one day, when you are ready, the world will know what I have always known. What's that? Harry asked, the tears streaming freely down his face now. What? Do you know? The dragon's last breath was a sigh, warm and soft against Harry's skin, and the voice in his head spoke its final words. That even the smallest light can shine brightest in the darkness. That even the most broken heart can mend if it finds the right love. That you, Harry Potter, are worthy of everything you've ever wanted and more. The dragon's eyes closed. The great chest stopped moving. And Harry, alone in the clearing with a baby dragon pressing against his side, began to cry. He cried for the dragon he'd never known, the one who had trusted him with its legacy. He cried for himself, for the life he'd lived and the future that was now laid out before him, uncertain and terrifying and wonderful. He cried because he was scared and tired and hungry and overwhelmed, because he was 7 years old and had just watched something magnificent die, because he was carrying a bond in his heart and a mark on his arm that he didn't understand. The baby dragon chirped, nudging him with its nose. Harry wrapped his arms around it, burying his face in its soft scales, and let the tears come. The dragon made a sound, low and humming, like a lullaby, and Harry felt a wash of comfort flow through their connection. He wasn't alone. The dragon was with him. The dragon would always be with him. When the tears finally stopped, Harry sat up and looked at his new companion. The dragon was watching him with its silver eyes, and Harry could feel the question in its mind. What now? I don't know, Harry admitted. I don't know where we are or how to get back. I don't know how to take care of you. I can barely take care of myself. The dragon blinked, and Harry felt a surge of something. Knowledge, maybe. Wisdom. An instinct that was not entirely his own. He looked down at the mark on his arm, and the runes seemed to pulse with a light that was both familiar and strange. Okay, he said slowly. Okay. You can show me. You can show me what to do. The dragon's eyes shimmered, and Harry felt a profound sense of rightness settle over him. He stood up, brushing the dirt from his clothes, and looked down at the great green dragon one last time. Its scales were dull now, the life gone from its eyes, but Harry knew it wasn't truly gone. It lived on in the egg that had hatched, in the bond that had been formed, in the future that was now waiting to be written. I promise, Harry said, his voice steady despite the tears still drying on his cheeks. I promise I'll take care of your hatchling. I promise I'll be worthy of the bond. I promise I'll make you proud. The wind stirred through the clearing, carrying the scent of rain and magic and the soft whisper of a voice that Harry would remember for the rest of his life. I know you will, Harry Potter. I know you will. And then he was alone with the dragon, and the woods were silent, and the path back to the world he knew was waiting for him. But the path was different now. Everything was different. Because Harry Potter was no longer just the boy in the cupboard, the freak, the unwanted. He was something new. Something rare and precious and filled with potential. He was a dragon rider. And his story was only just beginning. The baby dragon made a sound, and Harry looked down at it. Silver eyes looked back at him, and Harry felt a grin spread across his face despite everything. The dragon was small and vulnerable, but there was a fierce intelligence in those eyes, a spark of something that would one day grow into a fire that could change the world. "We need a name for you," Harry said, reaching down to stroke the dragon's head. The scales were smooth and warm, softer than they looked. "Something special. Something that means something," the dragon chirped, pressing against his hand. "Midnight," Harry said, watching the way the blue-black scales caught the fading light. "You look like midnight. And you came from a midnight storm, didn't you? That's what you are. A midnight storm dragon." The dragon, Midnight, made a sound of approval, and Harry laughed. It was a small sound, barely more than a hiccup, but it felt good. It felt like the first real laugh he'd had in a very long time. "Okay, Midnight," he said. "Let's go home." The path unfolded before them, clear and bright, and Harry walked out of the woods with his dragon at his side. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The past was behind him, and the future was waiting. And it was going to be magnificent. Chapter 2, The First Dragon Bond. The night air was cool against Harry's skin as he stumbled out of the woods, Midnight pressed close against his side. The baby dragon moved with surprising grace for a creature barely hours old, its tiny claws finding purchase on the uneven ground as it matched Harry's pace step for step. The bond between them hummed with warmth, a constant reminder that Harry was no longer alone, would never be alone again. The woods had released them reluctantly, the trees seeming to lean back as they approached the edge, branches that had reached for him before now pulling away as if in deference. Harry didn't understand it, didn't understand any of what had happened in those dark, magical hours. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty: everything had changed. The streetlights of Little Whinging glowed in the distance, pale orange pools of light that looked almost sickly after the golden twilight of the forest. Harry paused at the treeline, his heart hammering against his ribs. He could see the roofs of houses, the familiar shape of Privet Drive stretching out before him. Home. Or what passed for home. Midnight chirped softly, pressing her head against his hand. Through their bond, Harry felt her curiosity, and her confusion. She could sense his anxiety, could feel the way his body tensed at the sight of the houses ahead. But she didn't understand why. To her, this was just another place. Another part of the world she was eager to explore. "They won't understand you," Harry whispered, crouching down to look into her silver eyes. "The Dursleys, they're not like us. They don't like anything different. And you're the most different thing I've ever seen." Midnight blinked slowly, and Harry felt a surge of defiance through their bond. She didn't care what the Dursleys thought. She was a dragon, and she would not hide. Harry smiled despite himself. "I love your spirit," he said. "But we have to be careful. Please, Midnight. For me. Let me figure this out." The dragon made a sound that was almost a sigh, but she pressed closer to him, her warmth seeping through his thin shirt. Harry took a deep breath and stepped out of the woods. The walk back to number 4 was the longest of his life. Every step felt like a mile, every shadow seemed to hide a watching eye. Midnight stayed close, her head occasionally bumping against his hip, and Harry kept his eyes fixed on the ground, not wanting to see the curtains twitch or the neighbors peer out at the boy walking home with something that definitely was not a dog. But no one saw. No one looked. And by the time Harry reached the garden gate of number 4, he was almost trembling with relief. The house was dark, the Dursleys long since asleep. Harry crept around the back, Midnight following silently at his heels, and made his way to the small garden shed that sat at the bottom of the yard. It was filled with old tools and dusty boxes, the smell of petrol and rust heavy in the air, but it was hidden. Private. Safe. "This will have to do for now," Harry said, pushing aside a broken lawnmower to make room. "I know it's not much, but—" Midnight chirped, and Harry felt her approval through their bond. She didn't care about comfort. She cared about being with him. Harry arranged a pile of old blankets into a makeshift nest, his movements automatic as his mind raced with 1,000 questions. What did he do now? How did he take care of a dragon? Where was he supposed to get food for her? How was he supposed to hide her from the Dursleys, from the neighbors, from everyone? One thing at a time, he muttered, echoing a phrase he'd heard on the telly once. One thing at a time. Midnight settled into the nest, her silver eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Harry's breath catch. He sat down beside her, leaning against the shed wall, and felt exhaustion wash over him like a wave. It had been the longest day of his life, and his body was screaming for rest. Tomorrow, he whispered, his eyes already growing heavy. We'll figure it out tomorrow. The last thing he saw before sleep claimed him was Midnight's silver eyes, glowing in the darkness like twin moons. And the last thing he felt was the warmth of their bond, pulsing gently in his chest like a second heartbeat. Dawn came too quickly, pale gray light filtering through the cracks in the shed walls. Harry woke with a start, his heart racing, and for a moment he didn't know where he was. Then he felt the warmth against his side, heard the soft chirping sound, and remembered. Midnight. He looked down at the dragon, and his breath caught in his throat. She'd grown overnight. Not much, maybe an inch or two, but enough to be noticeable. Her scales shimmered in the morning light, shifting from midnight blue to deep purple as she stirred. Her wings had unfurled slightly, and Harry could see the membrane stretched thin between delicate bones, like the wings of a bat but infinitely more beautiful. Good morning, he whispered, reaching out to stroke her head. Midnight made a sound like a purr, pressing into his hand. Through their bond, Harry felt her contentment, her trust, her absolute faith that everything would be all right. It was a feeling he'd never experienced before. Someone believing in him. Someone relying on him. He would not let her down. The first order of business was food. Harry's own stomach was growling, and he could feel Midnight's hunger echoing through their bond. He needed to find something for them both to eat, and he needed to do it without attracting attention. He crept out of the shed, Midnight staying hidden as he'd asked her to, and made his way to the kitchen door. The house was quiet. The Dursleys wouldn't be up for another hour at least, and Harry slipped inside with the practiced ease of a boy who'd spent years learning to move unseen. The kitchen was immaculate, as always. Aunt Petunia's domain, kept spotless and ordered, everything in its proper place. Harry moved quickly, grabbing a few slices of bread from the bread bin, some cheese from the refrigerator, and an apple that had a small bruise on one side, the kind of fruit that would have been thrown away anyway. He pocketed the food and was about to slip back outside when he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. Footsteps. Coming down the stairs. Harry froze, his heart hammering. He looked around frantically, but there was nowhere to hide. The cupboard under the stairs was right there, but the door was closed and would make noise if he opened it. The pantry was too far. The back door was too far. The footsteps grew closer, and Harry made a split-second decision. He darted behind the kitchen table, crouching down and praying that the person wouldn't look his way. Uncle Vernon walked into the kitchen, massive and bleary-eyed, his dressing gown trailing behind him. He went straight to the coffee maker, not looking around, not noticing the boy hidden mere feet away. Harry held his breath, his heart pounding so loudly he was certain Vernon would hear it. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed, filling the kitchen with the bitter smell of coffee. Vernon stood there, his back to Harry, waiting. Harry watched him, barely daring to breathe, and felt a desperate prayer rising in his mind. Please don't turn around. Please don't look. And then, without warning, Vernon turned. Harry's eyes went wide. Vernon's eyes went wide. For a moment, either of them moved. Then Vernon's face purpled. What? He boomed. Are you doing down here? Harry scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. I was hungry, he stammered. I just wanted something to eat. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Vernon's eyes narrowed. He looked at Harry's pockets, at the bulge that revealed the stolen food. His face purpled further. Stealing, he hissed. You're stealing from us. After everything we've done for you, everything we've given you. The cupboard? Harry said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. You gave me a cupboard. And hand-me-downs. And the scraps from your table. The words hung in the air between them, and Harry watched Vernon's face cycle through several shades of purple. For a moment, he was certain the man was going to strike him. And then, incredibly, Vernon's expression shifted. Not to anger, but to something else. Something that looked almost like fear. Your eyes, Vernon said slowly. They're glowing. Harry blinked, confused. What? Your eyes, Vernon repeated, taking a step back. They're glowing. Like, he broke off, shaking his head. Get out of my sight. Go back to your cupboard. And if I catch you stealing again, you'll be sleeping in the garden. Harry didn't need to be told twice. He bolted, running out the back door and down the garden path before Vernon could change his mind. He didn't stop until he reached the shed, bursting through the door and collapsing against the wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Midnight chirped, pressing against him, and Harry felt her concern flooding through their bond. He was shaking, his hands trembling, and he couldn't seem to make them stop. He saw, Harry whispered. He saw my eyes glowing. What does that mean? Why were they glowing? Midnight couldn't answer, but Harry felt something through their bond. A feeling that was almost like reassurance. Whatever was happening to him, it was connected to her. Connected to the bond. Harry looked down. At his arm, at the runes that had appeared the night before. They were faint now, barely visible in the dim light, but he could feel them. A warm tingle beneath his skin, like a promise waiting to be kept. We need to learn, he said, more to himself than to Midnight. We need to understand what's happening to us. What we are now. Midnight chirped in agreement, and Harry felt a surge of determination wash over him. He opened the bread he'd stolen, breaking off a piece and offering it to the dragon. She sniffed it carefully, then took it, eating with the delicate precision of a creature who was already learning to trust. The first thing is to keep you hidden, Harry said, eating his own piece of bread. The Dursleys can't know about you. If they find out, he shuddered. I don't know what they'd do. But it wouldn't be good. Midnight made a sound that was almost a growl, and Harry felt her protective instincts stirring. She would defend him. She would defend him with everything she had. I know you would, Harry said, touching her head. But we're not ready for that yet. We need to be smart. We need to be careful. The day passed slowly, Harry keeping Midnight hidden in the shed while he went about his usual chores. He cleaned the kitchen, washed the dishes, weeded the garden, the familiar routine that had been his life for as long as he could remember. But everything felt different now. The colors seemed brighter, the sounds sharper, and the sky had never looked quite so blue. When he brought Midnight scraps from the dinner table, a few potatoes, some meat that would have been thrown away anyway, he found her pacing the shed, her wings fluttering with barely contained energy. Something's wrong, Harry said, feeling the agitation through their bond. What is it? Midnight chirped, and Harry felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was like his vision was shifting, the world around him changing. The shed walls seemed to fade, and Harry saw something else. A cavern, vast and dark, filled with the sound of dripping water. Ancient stones covered in moss, and symbols carved into the walls that glowed with a faint, phosphorescent light. What was that? Harry gasped, his vision snapping back to the present. What did you show me? Midnight chirped again, and Harry felt her excitement. She wanted to go there. She wanted to explore. But I don't know where that is, Harry protested. I've never seen anything like it before. Midnight made a sound that was almost impatient, and Harry felt something through their bond. A pull. A direction. The dragon knew the way somehow. She could find it, if only Harry would follow. Okay, Harry said, his heart racing. Okay, we'll go. But we have to be careful. We have to wait until it's dark. The wait was agony. Harry went through the motions of the evening routine, helping with dinner, cleaning up, enduring Dudley's taunts and Aunt Petunia's sharp comments. But his mind was elsewhere. All he could think about was the cavern he'd seen, the glowing symbols, the ancient stones. He needed to know what it was. He needed to see it for himself. When the house finally fell silent, Harry slipped out of his cupboard and made his way to the shed. Midnight was waiting for him, her silver eyes glowing in the darkness. "Ready?" Harry whispered. Midnight chirped, and Harry felt the pull again. Stronger this time, more insistent. He followed it out of the garden, through the quiet streets, past the houses that stood dark and silent in the night. The pull led him to the woods again, to the same edge where he'd entered the day before. "We're going back in," Harry said, his voice barely a whisper. "Midnight, what's in there? What are you showing me?" The dragon didn't answer, not in words, but Harry felt something through their bond. A sense of destiny. Of purpose. Of something waiting that had been waiting for a very long time. They entered the woods, and this time Harry wasn't afraid. The trees welcomed them, their branches seeming to reach out and stroke his hair as he passed. The path was clear and easy, and soon they were deep in the heart of the forest. The cavern entrance appeared suddenly, a dark opening in the base of an enormous oak tree. Harry hesitated, his heart pounding, but Midnight pushed past him, her small body disappearing into the darkness. "Midnight!" Harry hissed, following her in. "Wait for me!" The tunnel was narrow, forcing him to crawl on his hands and knees. The walls were smooth and cool, and as he moved deeper, he noticed that they were covered in the same symbols he'd seen in his vision. They glowed faintly, just enough to light the way. The tunnel opened up suddenly, and Harry found himself in a vast chamber. The ceiling was so high he couldn't see it, the walls so far apart they were barely visible. But the center of the room was bright, illuminated by a single beam of silver light that fell from somewhere above. And in the center of that light sat something that made Harry's breath catch. It was a book, enormous, bound in leather that looked like dragon scale, with symbols on the cover that matched the ones on his arm. It sat on a pedestal of black stone, glowing with a light that was warm and welcoming and somehow alive. "Wow!" Harry breathed, stepping forward. "What is this?" Midnight chirped, and Harry felt the answer through their bond. This was a sanctuary. A place created by the dragon riders of old, a place where their knowledge and power had been preserved for the one who would come after. "Me," Harry whispered. "It was preserved for me." He reached out and touched the book. The moment his fingers made contact with the leather, the runes on his arm flared to life, burning with silver fire. Harry cried out, trying to pull away, but he couldn't move. The book had him, and it was showing him things. Images flooded his mind, dragons of all shapes and sizes, riders who wore crowns of silver and wielded magic that made his head spin. Battles fought in the sky, wars that spanned centuries, dragons and wizards working together in a golden age that was lost to time. And at the center of it all, a symbol that matched the mark on his arm, pulsing with power and purpose. When the vision faded, Harry collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. His arm was burning, but when he looked down, the runes had changed. They were brighter now, more defined, and they seemed to move with a life of their own. "Midnight!" he gasped. "What's happening to me?" The dragon pressed against him, her warmth seeping into his skin. Through their bond, Harry felt a surge of power, his power, but amplified. Magnified. He could feel the magic in the air around him, could feel the way it responded to his presence. He could feel the book speaking to him, calling to him, offering him knowledge that had been hidden for 1,000 years. "Show me," Harry whispered, reaching for the book again. "Show me everything." This time, the vision was different. The images were lessons, instructions, knowledge poured directly into his mind. He learned about the bond between dragon and rider, about the magic that flowed between them, about the ancient language that dragons had used before wizards ever learned to speak. He learned about the history of the riders, about their rise and their fall, about the darkness that had consumed them and the hope that remained. He learned about Midnight, about what she was and what she would become. The Midnight Storm Dragon, a breed so rare that only 3 had ever been recorded. A breed of immense power, of storms and shadows and secrets. A breed that chose its rider and never, ever let go. And he learned about himself. About what he was becoming. When the vision finally ended, Harry sat in the darkness, his mind reeling. He was no longer the boy who had woken up in the cupboard, scared and hungry and alone. He was something different now. Something more. "I'm a dragon rider," he whispered, the words feeling both strange and right. "I'm the last rider," Midnight chirped, and Harry felt her agreement. Her pride. Her absolute certainty that he was the one. "Thank you," Harry said, looking up at the book. "Thank you for showing me." The book glowed once, then faded, its light dimming until it was just another object in the dim cavern. But Harry knew it would be there if he needed it again. It would always be there. "We should go," he said, standing up. "Before the Dursleys notice I'm gone." Midnight made a sound of protest, but she followed him out of the cavern, her small body pressed against his side. The journey back through the woods was quicker this time, the path clear and bright, and soon they were standing at the edge of the forest again. But something was different. Harry could feel it, a change in the air, a shift in the magic around him. He looked up at the sky, and his heart nearly stopped. Storm clouds were gathering, dark and ominous, their centers swirling with a light that was not lightning. The clouds seemed to be forming directly over the house, over the street, over the entire neighborhood. "What did I do?" Harry breathed. "What's happening?" Midnight chirped, and Harry felt her excitement. The storm was hers. She'd called it, unconsciously, responding to the power that had flowed through their bond. "You have to stop," Harry said, grabbing her head and looking into her eyes. "You have to stop, Midnight. Everyone will see. Everyone will know." The dragon looked at him, and Harry felt her confusion. She didn't understand why he was afraid. Why he wanted to hide. "Please," Harry said, his voice breaking. "Please, Midnight. Just this once. We'll learn to control it. We'll figure out how to use it properly. But not tonight. Please." Midnight made a sound that was almost a sigh, and the clouds began to dissipate. The storm faded away, the sky clearing until it was just another ordinary night. "Thank you," Harry whispered, sagging with relief. "Thank you for listening." He crept back into the garden, Midnight following close behind, and made his way to the shed. The nest was still there, the blankets still piled up, and Harry collapsed into them with a weariness that went bone deep. But he couldn't sleep. His mind was racing with everything he'd learned, everything he'd seen. The dragon riders, the bond, the magic that flowed through his veins. He was no longer Harry Potter, the boy who lived in a cupboard and didn't understand why things happened to him. He was Harry Potter, the dragon rider. The last rider. He looked down at his arm, at the runes that glowed faintly in the dark. They pulsed in time with his heartbeat, in time with Midnight's, a constant reminder of the bond they shared. "One day," he whispered, "we're going to change everything. We're going to be the beginning of something new." Midnight chirped in agreement, and Harry felt a surge of hope unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The future was uncertain, terrifying, and full of danger. But for the first time in his life, Harry Potter was no longer afraid. Because he wasn't alone anymore. And he had a feeling that, whatever came next, he and Midnight would face it together. The next few weeks passed in a blur of discovery and danger. Harry learned to feed Midnight, to care for her, to hide her from the Dursleys and the neighbors and everyone who might ask questions. He learned to control his new abilities, to keep his eyes from glowing when he was upset, to keep the magic from leaking out when he was scared. But he also learned to fly. It happened one night, when Midnight had grown enough to carry him. She'd spread her wings, grown large enough to support his weight, and together they'd take him to the sky. The feeling of the wind in his hair, the ground falling away beneath him, the stars spreading out above him like a blanket of diamonds, Harry had never felt anything like it. It was freedom, pure and absolute, and he knew that he would never give it up. Midnight had grown, too. She was the size of a small horse now, her scales shimmering with a light that was both beautiful and terrifying. When she flew, the clouds seemed to part for her, the wind seeming to bend to her will. Harry could feel her power growing, and with it, his own. The bond between them had deepened, too. They could communicate without words now, thoughts passing between them like water flowing through a stream. Harry could feel Midnight's emotions, her desires, her fears. And she could feel his. "You're the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me," Harry told her one night, high above the sleeping world. "I don't know what I did to deserve you." Midnight made a sound that was almost a purr, and Harry felt her love through their bond. It was unconditional, absolute, the kind of love he'd never known. "We're going to do great things," Harry said, looking out at the world below. "We're going to make the dragons proud." And deep in his heart, Harry knew it was true. The bond between them was the beginning of something new, something powerful. Something that would change the world. But there was something else, too. Something that Harry couldn't quite identify. A feeling that they were being watched, that someone somewhere knew what was happening. Harry pushed the thought away. It was too big, too frightening, too much to deal with. He had Midnight, and Midnight was enough. For now. "Take me home," he whispered. "Take me home, Midnight." The dragon turned, her wings catching the night wind, and together they soared back toward Privet Drive. Back toward the life that was waiting for them. Back toward the future that they would build together. Harry Potter, the youngest dragon rider in wizarding history, had taken his first flight. And the world would never be the same. Chapter 3, Magic No One Can Hide. The summer heat had settled over Privet Drive like a suffocating blanket, thick and oppressive, turning the perfectly manicured lawns into yellowing patches of desperation. Inside Number 4, the air conditioning hummed constantly, a mechanical whine that did little to cool the tension that had been building in the house for weeks. Something was wrong with Harry Potter, and the Dursleys could feel it in their bones. Harry felt it too, the magic crackling beneath his skin like static electricity before a storm. It had started small, barely noticeable, a faint tingle that danced along his nerve endings when he was particularly upset or particularly happy. But it had grown stronger with each passing day, feeding on the bond with Midnight, on the ancient power that now flowed through his veins. He couldn't control it. That was the terrifying part. The magic came and went as it pleased, bursting out of him in ways that were impossible to explain and impossible to hide. 3 weeks after the night in the cavern, Harry stood in the garden, his hands buried in the soil of Aunt Petunia's prized petunias. She'd made him weed them as punishment for some imagined slight. He'd looked at Dudley wrong, or breathed too loudly, or simply existed in her presence. And Harry had been working for hours, his knees aching and his back screaming. But he didn't mind. The garden was the one place where he could be alone with his thoughts, where he could feel Midnight's presence through the bond without fear of discovery. Midnight was growing too quickly. She was the size of a large dog now, her wingspan almost double her body length, and hiding her was becoming increasingly difficult. The shed had been her home for weeks, but it was too small, too cramped. She needed space to move, to fly, to be the dragon she was meant to be. Harry felt her restlessness through the bond, a constant hum of frustration that mirrored his own. They were both trapped, both confined, both yearning for something more. "Almost done," Harry muttered, pulling a particularly stubborn weed from the soil. "Just a few more, and then we can." The weed came free with a sudden jerk, sending Harry tumbling backward. He landed hard on the grass, and something inside him snapped. The magic exploded outward. Harry felt it tear through him, hot and wild, a torrent of power that he had no hope of controlling. The garden erupted around him, petunias bursting into brilliant blooms of every color, the grass growing impossibly tall, the garden gnome that Uncle Vernon had threatened to destroy springing to life and dancing a jig across the lawn. The shed door blew open, and Harry saw Midnight's silver eyes glowing in the darkness, felt her shock and her fear and her desperate need to protect him. "Harry!" Aunt Petunia's voice shrieked from the kitchen window. "What have you done to my garden?" Harry scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. The magic was still crackling around him, visible now as sparks of silver light that danced along his skin. He tried to push it down, tried to shove it back where it came from, but it wouldn't obey. It was too wild, too powerful, too new. "Nothing," Harry shouted back, his voice cracking. I don't know what." The garden gnome ran past him, cackling with laughter, and Aunt Petunia screamed. The next few minutes were chaos. Uncle Vernon burst out of the house, his face purple, his eyes bulging with rage. He had a cricket bat in his hands, and Harry knew without thinking that it was meant for him. "What have you done to my garden?" Vernon roared, advancing on Harry. "What have you done, you freak?" I can't." Harry stumbled backward, his hands raised. "Please, Uncle Vernon, I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to?" Vernon's voice was a howl. "Didn't mean to? Look at my garden. Look at what you've done." The magic was still sparking around Harry, growing stronger with his fear. The air around him shimmered, and Harry felt something building inside him, something that he couldn't control, couldn't stop. "Midnight," he whispered, reaching out through the bond. "Help me! Please help me!" But Midnight was trapped in the shed, and Vernon was getting closer, and Harry could feel the magic about to erupt again. It was going to tear him apart, he knew it. It was going to destroy everything. "Don't come any closer," Harry warned, his voice shaking. "Please, Uncle Vernon. I don't want to hurt you." "Hurt me?" Vernon laughed, a terrible sound. "You think you can hurt me, boy? You're nothing. You're less than nothing. You're a freak, a burden, a—" Harry's glasses shattered. The magic exploded out of him in a wave of silver light, and Harry felt something break. Not his glasses, that was just a side effect, but something inside him. A dam that had been holding back the flood for far too long. The world went white. When Harry's vision cleared, he was lying on the ground, the grass cool against his cheek. His body ached, his head pounded, and there was a faint ringing in his ears. But he was alive. He was whole. He pushed himself up, looking around, and his heart nearly stopped. The garden was gone. In its place was a crater, 10 feet wide and 3 feet deep. The shed had been obliterated, splinters of wood scattered across the lawn. And Uncle Vernon? Uncle Vernon was pinned against the house, his face white with terror, his body held in place by an invisible force. "Please," Vernon whimpered, his voice breaking. "Please don't hurt me. Don't hurt me." Harry stared at him, and for a moment, he felt nothing but satisfaction. This was the man who had locked him in a cupboard for years. The man who had starved him, beaten him, made him feel worthless. The man who had tried to destroy everything good in his life. And now that man was begging. "Harry." The voice was soft, familiar, and Harry turned to see Midnight standing at the edge of the crater. She was unharmed, her silver eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "You have to let him go." "Midnight," Harry breathed. You're talking to me." In words. She was. The bond between them had deepened, and Harry could hear her voice in his head as clearly as if she were standing beside him and speaking aloud. "You have to let him go," Midnight repeated. "You're better than this. You're better than him." Harry looked at Uncle Vernon, still pinned against the house, still trembling with fear. And he felt the anger drain out of him, replaced by something that felt like pity. "You're right," Harry said, turning away from Vernon. "You're right. He's not worth it." He released the magic, and Vernon collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Harry didn't look back. He walked to Midnight, his legs unsteady, and wrapped his arms around her neck. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for stopping me." "Always," Midnight replied, her voice warm in his mind. "I will always be here for you, Harry. Always." The fallout from the garden incident was immediate and severe. The Dursleys couldn't ignore what had happened. They couldn't pretend that the crater in their garden was the result of a gas leak or a strange weather phenomenon. They couldn't explain away the garden gnome that was still running around the neighborhood, terrorizing the neighbors. And they couldn't pretend that Harry wasn't dangerous. The next morning, Harry woke in his cupboard to find the door locked from the outside. He tried to push it open, tried to call out, but no one answered. The Dursleys had simply decided that the best way to deal with the freak was to pretend he didn't exist. "Midnight," Harry said, reaching out through the bond. "Can you hear me?" "Yes," Midnight replied, her voice immediately present in his mind. "I'm here. I'm always here." "Where are you?" "Outside. In the woods." There was a pause. "The Dursleys are afraid, Harry. They're talking about sending you away. They want to get rid of you." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "Where? Where are they going to send me?" "I don't know. They're discussing it now. But I can hear them, through the bond. They're scared, Harry. They're very scared." Harry sat in the darkness, his heart pounding. The Dursleys had always wanted to get rid of him, but they never had a good enough reason before. Now they had a crater in their garden and a garden gnome on the loose. They had proof that Harry was different, that he was dangerous. And they had decided that he needed to go. "I won't let them," Harry said, his voice fierce. "I won't let them send me away. Not without you, Harry." Midnight's voice was gentle. Maybe we should run. Together. Just the two of us." "Run?" Harry shook his head. "Where would we go? We don't have any money. We don't have anywhere to go. We have each other," Midnight said. "That's enough. That's always been enough." Harry was silent for a long moment, turning the idea over in his mind. Running away had never been an option before. He'd been too young, too scared, too dependent on the Dursleys for food and shelter. But now he had Midnight. He had magic. He had power. Maybe running wasn't such a bad idea. "I can't leave," Harry said finally. "Not like this. If I run, they'll think I'm guilty. They'll think I did something wrong." "You did nothing wrong," Midnight said fiercely. "You defended yourself. You protected yourself. That's not wrong. That's never wrong." "I know." Harry pressed his forehead against the door of the cupboard. "But I need to face them. I need to show them that I'm not afraid." "Then I'll be with you," Midnight said. "Always." The lock clicked open, and Harry pushed the door open, blinking in the sudden light. His aunt and uncle were standing there, their faces pale and grim. "We've made a decision," Uncle Vernon said, his voice cold. "You're leaving. Today." Harry's heart dropped into his stomach. "Where am I going?" "There's a place," Aunt Petunia said, her voice trembling. "A place for people like you. Special people. We made arrangements. They're coming to pick you up." "Who?" Harry demanded. "Who's coming?" "Magical people," Aunt Petunia said, spitting the word like it was poison. "People from your world." Harry felt his heart stop. "My world?" "That's right, boy," Uncle Vernon said, stepping forward. "We know all about it now. We always suspected, but now we know. You're one of them. A freak. A magical freak. And we're finally getting rid of you." Harry's mind was racing. Magical people. People from his world. Were they wizards? Were they coming to take him away to the magical world he'd always dreamed of? But something felt wrong. The Dursleys were scared, yes, but there was something else in their eyes. Something that looked like relief. Like they were finally getting rid of a burden that had been weighing them down for too long. "When are they coming?" Harry asked. "Any moment now," Uncle Vernon said. "They're sending someone to pick you up. Someone who can handle magical things." The doorbell rang. Harry's heart lurched. He could feel Midnight's presence in the back of his mind, her concern, her readiness to act. He sent a wave of reassurance through the bond, telling her to wait, to trust him. Uncle Vernon opened the door, and Harry saw a figure standing on the doorstep. The figure was tall and thin, with silver hair and a long, flowing robe. He looked like someone from a storybook, someone who belonged in a different time, a different place. "Good morning," the figure said, his voice warm and musical. "I'm here for the boy." Harry's breath caught. He'd never met anyone like this before, and yet something about the man felt familiar. Comfortable. Like coming home after a long time away. "I'm Harry," he said, stepping forward. "Harry Potter." The man smiled, and Harry felt something shift in the air. "Yes," the man said. "I know who you are." And before Harry could ask any more questions, before he could demand to know where he was being taken and what was happening to him, the world dissolved into a swirl of color and sound, and Harry felt himself being pulled away from Privet Drive, away from the Dursleys, away from everything he'd ever known. When Harry opened his eyes, he was standing in a small cottage in the middle of nowhere. The walls were lined with bookshelves, the windows were covered in dust, and there was a fire crackling in the hearth. It was warm and cozy, nothing like the cold sterility of number 4. The tall man was standing beside him, watching him with a curious expression. "Welcome," the man said. "This is where you'll be staying for a while." Harry's heart was racing. "What's happening? Who are you? Where am I?" "My name is Albus Dumbledore," the man said. "And you, Harry Potter, are in the middle of something much bigger than you could possibly imagine." "Dumbledore?" Harry repeated, the name feeling strange on his tongue. That's a weird name." Dumbledore laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Yes, I suppose it is. But I've been called worse." Harry looked around the room, trying to make sense of everything. "You're a wizard, aren't you? You're from the magical world." "Yes," Dumbledore said. "I am a wizard. And I've come to help you." Harry felt a surge of relief mixed with confusion. "Help me? How? Why?" "Because," Dumbledore said, his expression turning serious, "you are in great danger, Harry. The things that are happening to you, the magic, the bond, the dragon, they make you a target. There are people out there who would do anything to get their hands on you." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "You know about Midnight? You know about the bond?" "I know more than you might think." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "I've been watching you for a very long time, Harry. I've seen the magic, the dragon, the runes on your arm. I know what you are, and I know what you're becoming." "What am I becoming?" Harry asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The last dragon rider," Dumbledore said. "The one who will bring dragons back into the magical world and change the course of wizarding history. There are some who would see you fail. Some who would see you dead." Harry's knees went weak. He stumbled to a chair, collapsing into it. His mind was reeling, unable to process everything Dumbledore was telling him. "I'm just a kid," Harry said, his voice shaking. I'm nobody." "No, Harry." Dumbledore knelt in front of him, his ancient eyes piercing into Harry's soul. "You are not nobody. You are the most important person in the magical world, whether you like it or not. And I'm here to help you understand what that means." Harry opened his mouth to ask another question, but the words died in his throat as the cottage door burst open. Midnight crashed through the doorway, her wings spread, her silver eyes blazing. She was enormous now, easily the size of a large pony, and her presence filled the small room, overwhelming everything with her sheer power. "Harry!" Midnight's voice roared in his mind. "I sense danger. I came as quickly as I could." "Midnight, no!" Harry shouted, jumping to his feet. "It's okay. He's not here to hurt us." Midnight's eyes swept the room, landing on Dumbledore. The old man stood very still, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Hello, little one," Dumbledore said softly. "I've been expecting you." Midnight growled, a low rumbling sound that shook the walls. "Who are you? Why have you taken my rider?" "I mean you no harm," Dumbledore said. "I'm here to help. I know what you are, what you've become. And I know what you can do." Midnight's growl faded slightly. She looked at Harry, her silver eyes questioning. He's a wizard, Harry said. He says he wants to help us. I do want to help, Dumbledore said, taking a step closer. But we have to be careful. There are forces moving against you, forces that I cannot fully control. The magic you've been using, the bond you've formed, they're attracting attention. Attention from the wrong kind of people. Harry felt a cold knot form in his stomach. What kind of people? The dark kind, Dumbledore said. People who would use you for their own purposes. People who would try to control you, manipulate you, take everything from you. They won't take me from you, Midnight said fiercely. No one will ever take you from me. Harry reached out, touching her snout. I know, he said. I know. Dumbledore smiled, but there was a shadow in his eyes. The bond between you is strong, he said. Stronger than I've ever seen. But it will be tested. The days ahead will be difficult. You will face trials that seem impossible, enemies that seem unbeatable. And the magic you wield will only grow stronger and harder to control. That's what I'm afraid of, Harry admitted. I can't control it. It just happens. Dumbledore nodded gravely. The magic of a dragon rider is different from ordinary wizarding magic. It's wilder, more instinctual. It responds to your emotions, your desires, your deepest fears. To control it, you must first learn to control yourself. How do I do that? Dumbledore reached into his robes and pulled out a small book, leather-bound and ancient. This, he said, will help. Harry took the book, his fingers tracing the runes on the cover. They were the same as the ones on his arm, the same as the ones in the cavern. I'll also teach you, Dumbledore said. I'll teach you everything I know about magic, about the world, about what you are and what you can become. Harry looked at the old wizard, then at Midnight, then at the book in his hands. It was too much, too fast. His head was spinning, his heart racing. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to fall into an abyss. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. Fear is natural, Dumbledore said. Fear is what keeps us alive. But fear can also be a prison, if we let it. You must learn to use your fear, to channel it into strength, to turn it into something that serves you instead of controlling you. Harry nodded, though he didn't fully understand. Okay, he said. Okay. I'll try. That's all I ask? Dumbledore smiled, and for a moment, Harry felt like everything was going to be all right. Now come. We have much work to do. The lessons began immediately. Dumbledore taught Harry how to control his magic, how to focus it, how to direct it instead of letting it burst out uncontrollably. It was exhausting and frustrating, but Harry made progress. Slowly, painfully, he began to master the power that had been such a source of fear. He also learned about the magical world, about Hogwarts, about wizards and witches, about the Ministry of Magic. He learned about the war, about Voldemort, about the prophecy that had been made before he was born. Harry, you are special, Dumbledore told him. You have a destiny. And I believe, with all my heart, that you will fulfill it. But there were other forces at work, too. Not just Dumbledore, but others. Observers who watched from the shadows, who reported everything they saw to their masters. Harry didn't notice them at first, but when he finally did, he realized that he had no privacy. He was always being watched. Who are they? Harry asked one day, pointing at the figures who had appeared at the edge of the woods. Dumbledore's face grew dark. They are the ones I warned you about, he said. The dark forces. Voldemort's followers. They're everywhere now, watching, waiting. They know what you are. They know what you're becoming. And they want to stop you. A cold knot formed in Harry's stomach. What do they want? They want the power of the dragon riders for themselves, Dumbledore said. They want to control the dragons, to use them as weapons. They'll do anything to get what they want. Anything? Dumbledore nodded grimly. They've already killed to get it. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. I don't want anyone to die because of me. You can't control what others do, Dumbledore said. Only what you do. And you must be strong, Harry. Stronger than you've ever been. Over the next few weeks, Harry threw himself into his training. He learned spells, practiced control, tested the limits of his power. He worked harder than he'd ever worked in his life, driven by the fear of what might happen if he failed. And Midnight grew with him. She was now the size of a small horse, her scales shimmering with a light that seemed to come from within. Her wings were fully formed, her claws deadly sharp, her eyes blazing with an intelligence that Harry found both reassuring and unnerving. She was beautiful, powerful, terrifying. And she was his. The bond between them deepened, too. Harry could feel her emotions, her thoughts, her very essence. They were two souls connected, two halves of a whole. Together, they were becoming something new. Something powerful. And the magical world took notice. The first sign that something had changed came on a Thursday afternoon. Harry was in the garden, practicing a spell Dumbledore had taught him, when the sky began to darken. Storm clouds rolled in from nowhere, swirling with a power that Harry had never seen before. And at the center of the storm, Midnight flew, her wings spread, her eyes blazing, her body crackling with the same silver lightning that had destroyed the garden at Privet Drive. Midnight! Harry shouted, running toward her. Stop! You have to stop! The dragon looked down at him, and Harry saw the madness in her eyes. She was lost in the storm, consumed by the power that was surging through her. Harry. Dumbledore's voice was calm, measured. You need to reach her. You need to help her. How? Harry cried, his voice cracking. How do I help her? Through the bond, Dumbledore said. Open yourself to her. Let her feel your love, your strength, your resolve. Remind her who she is, what she is. Show her that she is more than the storm. Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the bond that connected him to Midnight. He felt her power, her fear, her confusion. The storm was overwhelming her, drowning out everything she was. Midnight, he called out through the bond. Can you hear me? The dragon's response was a roar, confused and frightened. Harry? I can't control it. The storm, it's taking me. Let me in, Harry said. Let me help you. He opened himself fully to the bond, pouring everything he was into it. His love for Midnight, his hope for the future, his determination to protect her no matter what. He gave her everything, holding nothing back. And slowly, the storm began to calm. Midnight descended to the ground, her wings folding. She was trembling, her scales still crackling with residual power. Harry ran to her, wrapping his arms around her neck. It's okay, he whispered. I've got you. Everything's going to be okay. I'm sorry, Midnight said, her voice small in his mind. I didn't mean to. I know, Harry said. I know you didn't. It's okay. Dumbledore approached them, his expression grave. The storm was felt across the entire magical community, he said. Gringotts has detected the magical fluctuations. The Ministry is investigating. And Voldemort's followers, they know. Harry looked up, his face pale. They know about me? About Midnight? They know something is happening, Dumbledore said. They may not know the full truth yet, but they will. They're already moving. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. He'd known this day would come, but he hadn't expected it so soon. He'd thought he would have more time. What do we do? He asked. Dumbledore was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft but firm. We prepare, he said. We gather our allies. We get ready for what's coming. What's coming? Harry asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Dumbledore met his eyes, and Harry saw the truth in them. The weight of 1,000 years of history, 1,000 years of battles and losses. And sacrifices. War, Dumbledore said. The war is coming, Harry. And you're going to be at the center of it. Harry felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He looked at Midnight, at the incredible creature who had chosen him, and he made a decision. "I won't let you down," he said. "I'll be ready." Dumbledore nodded, a sad smile on his face. "I know you will, Harry. I know you will." And deep in the distance, in the halls of Gringotts and the depths of the Ministry, ancient wards began to flicker. The goblins felt it first, a tremor in the magical fabric of the world that hadn't been felt in centuries. Then the wizards felt it, a ripple of power that spoke of dragons and riders and the return of a legacy that had been lost to time. The dragon rider mark on Harry's arm pulsed, glowing with a light that was both beautiful and terrifying. The world was changing. And Harry Potter was leading the charge. Chapter 4: The Dragon Sanctuary. The days blurred together in a haze of training, fear, and discovery. Harry's world had narrowed to the cottage, the forest, and the ancient presence of midnight beside him. But the magic continued to grow, to shift, to demand more from him than he knew how to give. The runes on his arm had become brighter, pulsing with a life of their own, and Harry could feel something pulling at him, a call that came from somewhere deep beneath the earth. It was Midnight who finally led him to the truth. They were flying one night, high above the trees, when the dragon suddenly banked hard, her wings catching the wind with a sharp crack. Harry clutched her scales, his heart racing as she descended into a narrow valley he'd never noticed before. "Midnight, what are you doing?" Harry called out, but the dragon didn't answer. She was focused, her silver eyes fixed on something Harry couldn't see. They landed at the base of a cliff, and Harry slid off Midnight's back, his legs unsteady. The valley was dark, the trees pressing close, and the only light came from the dragon's glowing scales. "Look," Midnight said, her voice soft in his mind. She nodded her head toward the cliff face, and Harry saw it, a crack in the stone, barely visible, no wider than his hand. "What is it?" Harry asked, approaching cautiously. "Home," Midnight said. "Our home." Harry reached out, pressing his palm against the stone. The moment his skin touched the rock, the runes on his arm flared to life, burning with silver fire. The ground beneath him shook, and the crack in the cliff began to widen, revealing a passageway that led deep into the earth. "What did you do?" Harry gasped, stumbling back. "I didn't do anything," Midnight said. "You did. You opened it." The tunnel was dark, but as Harry stepped forward, the walls began to glow with the same phosphorescent light he'd seen in the cavern beneath the forest. Symbols covered every surface. The same symbols that marked his arm, that covered the ancient book, that seemed to be everywhere he looked. "Come," Midnight said, nudging him forward. "There's something you need to see." They walked for what felt like hours, the tunnel winding deeper and deeper into the earth. Harry's heart pounded in his chest, but he wasn't afraid. The magic that surrounded him felt welcoming, familiar, like an old friend he'd never known he had. And then they emerged into a chamber so vast that Harry couldn't see the ceiling. It was a city, no, something older than a city. A sanctuary? Carved from the living rock, the chamber stretched out before him like a dream made real. Towers rose from the ground, their spires reaching toward a ceiling that glowed with the light of 1,000 stars. Bridges spanned the distance between buildings, arching gracefully over nothingness. And everywhere, there were dragons. Not living dragons. Statues. Carvings. Murals. The dragons were depicted in every conceivable form, their wings spread, their eyes blazing, their bodies frozen in poses of power and grace. They were beautiful and terrifying, and Harry felt his breath catch at the sight of them. "Who built this?" he whispered, his voice echoing in the vastness. "The first riders," Midnight said. "The ones who came before. They built this place to protect the bond, to preserve the knowledge of the dragons for the ones who would come after." Harry walked forward, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The statues seemed to watch him as he passed, their stone eyes following his progress. He could feel their presence, their ancient power, their patient waiting. "How long have you known about this place?" Harry asked, looking at Midnight. "I've always known," she said. "It's in my blood." The memories of my ancestors passed down through the bond. I knew I would bring you here someday. I just had to wait until you were ready. Ready for what? Ready to understand, Midnight said. Ready to accept what you've become. Harry stopped in the center of the chamber, surrounded on all sides by the silent stone dragons. He could feel the weight of their gaze, the weight of their history, the weight of the future they were pressing into his hands. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted. I'm just a kid. I don't know anything about being a rider. I don't know anything about anything. You know more than you think, Midnight said. The bond has taught you. The magic has taught you. And I will teach you the rest. Harry looked at her, at the silver eyes that held so much wisdom, and felt a surge of gratitude. What do I need to learn? Midnight was quiet for a moment. Then she said, everything. The sanctuary became Harry's home. He spent every spare moment there, exploring the ancient buildings, studying the carvings, learning the history of the dragon riders. The first riders had been the greatest wizards of their age, men and women who had bonded with dragons and used their combined power to protect the magical world from darkness. They had built the sanctuary as a refuge, a place where riders could train, learn, and grow. And they had left behind everything they knew, everything they had discovered, for the ones who would come after. The knowledge was overwhelming. Harry spent hours in the library, poring over ancient texts that were written in languages he'd never seen before. He learned about the different breeds of dragons, about their strengths and weaknesses, about the bonds that connected them to their riders. He learned about the magic that flowed between them, the way their emotions and thoughts intertwined, the way their powers fed off each other. He also learned about the war. The first riders had been betrayed. Centuries ago, a faction of dark wizards had risen up against them, jealous of their power, afraid of what they could do. The riders had fought back, but they had been outnumbered, and the war had cost them everything. Most of the riders had died. The rest had scattered, hiding their identities, hiding their bonds, waiting for a time when they could emerge again. That time, the ancient text said, was coming. A new rider would be born, the last rider, and they would reunite the scattered dragons, rebuild the order of riders, and usher in a new age of peace and prosperity. Harry couldn't help but feel the weight of that prophecy pressing down on him. Do you think I'm the last rider? He asked Midnight one night, when the stars above them were particularly bright. I know you are, Midnight said. I knew it from the moment I saw you. I knew it from the moment our bond formed. You are the one the prophecy speaks of. You are the one who will change everything. Harry shook his head. I can't do this. I can't be what everyone expects me to be. I'm just Harry. Harry, Midnight said, and her voice was so gentle that it made his heart ache. You are the most extraordinary person I have ever known. You have already done things that would have broken anyone else. And you will do so much more. I don't want to be extraordinary, Harry said. I just want to be normal. But you are not normal, Midnight said. And that is not a curse. It is a gift. A gift that you will use to save the world. Harry was silent for a long time. Then he said, Okay. Teach me. Teach me how to be a rider. The training was intense. Harry learned to fly properly, to control Midnight in the air, to use their bond to anticipate each other's movements. He learned to fight on dragonback, to cast spells while flying, to defend himself and his dragon from attack. He learned to channel his magic through the bond, to amplify Midnight's power and use it as his own. And he learned about the old magic, the ancient spells that the first riders had used, the spells that could only be cast by a rider and their dragon together. They were powerful, more powerful than any magic Harry had ever seen, and they came with a price. Every spell they cast drained a piece of their bond, a piece of their magic, a piece of themselves. They had to be careful, had to be precise, had to be willing to sacrifice. It's scary, Harry admitted one night, after a particularly grueling session. The magic, I mean. It feels so powerful. I feel like I could destroy everything. That is the danger of power, Midnight said. It can corrupt. It can consume. But it can also create. The choice is yours, Harry. You can use your power for destruction, or you can use it for good. I want to use it for good, Harry said. I never want to hurt anyone. I know, Midnight said. That is why you are worthy of the bond. The training continued, and Harry grew stronger. His magic became more refined, his control more precise. He could summon the runes on his arm at will, could use them to amplify his spells, could feel the power of the bond surging through him like a second heartbeat. But there were other things he learned, too. The sanctuary had secrets, hidden rooms and passages that only a rider could find. Harry discovered them slowly, piece by piece, each one revealing another layer of the ancient history he was now a part of. He found the Hall of Dragons, a vast chamber lined with the bones of ancient beasts. The bones glowed with a faint light, pulsing with the residual magic of the dragons that had once lived there. Harry could feel their spirits in the air, could hear their whispers in the back of his mind. These were the first, Midnight told him. The ones who chose to bond with the riders. They gave their lives to protect the Order, to preserve the knowledge for future generations. Harry touched one of the bones, and a vision flooded his mind, a dragon so enormous it blocked out the sky, its scales shimmering like gold, its eyes blazing like twin suns. The dragon spoke to him, its voice deep and rumbling. You are the one we have been waiting for. You are the one who will lead us back to the light. I'm just Harry, Harry said, the same words he always said. We know, the dragon replied. And that is why we chose you. The vision faded, and Harry stumbled back, his heart pounding. Midnight was at his side instantly, her body warm against his. Are you all right? She asked, her voice filled with concern. I'm fine, Harry said, though he wasn't sure that was true. I don't know what to think. You don't have to think, Midnight said. You just have to feel. The bond will guide you. It always has. Harry nodded, and for the first time, he felt a sense of peace settling over him. He was part of something bigger than himself, something older and wiser and more powerful than he could ever imagine. And that was okay. He didn't have to understand everything. He just had to trust. Okay, he said. What's next? What came next was a test. Harry was exploring the sanctuary one afternoon when he found a door that he'd never noticed before. It was hidden behind a tapestry, the stone covered in runes that pulsed with a familiar light. Harry reached out, pressing his palm against the door, and it swung open, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into darkness. Midnight, he called out, feeling the dragon's presence through the bond. I found something. Come see. Midnight appeared at his side, her silver eyes fixed on the staircase. I know what this is, she said, and there was a note of something like excitement in her voice. This is the Chamber of Trials. The place where the first riders tested their students. Tested? Harry asked, his heart suddenly pounding. What kind of tests? Trials of courage, Midnight said. Trials of wisdom. Trials of heart. You will face your deepest fears, your greatest challenges, your most terrible doubts. And if you survive, you will be ready to become a true rider. Harry stared at the staircase, his mouth dry. I don't know if I can do this. I know you can, Midnight said. I believe in you. Harry hesitated, his heart pounding. Then he took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped onto the staircase. The descent was long and winding, the walls lined with torches that flared to life as he passed. The air grew colder, heavier, and Harry could feel the weight of the magic pressing down on him. When he finally reached the bottom, he found himself in a chamber that was filled with mirrors. The mirrors were everywhere, stretching from floor to ceiling, each one showing a different image. Harry stepped forward, looking into the first mirror, and what he saw made him flinch. It was the Dursleys, but not the Dursleys he knew. They were bigger, more threatening, their faces twisted with malice. They were shouting at him, calling him names, telling him he was worthless. You are nothing, Uncle Vernon snarled. You will always be nothing. Harry wanted to turn away, but he forced himself to look. The image faded, and the next mirror showed him something else, a battlefield, covered in the bodies of dragons and riders. At the center of it all stood a figure with red eyes and a serpent's smile. "Come to me, Harry," the figure said. "Join me. I can give you everything you've ever wanted." "I don't want anything from you," Harry shouted, his voice echoing in the chamber. The figure laughed. "You think you can resist? You are weak. You are nothing. And you will never be anything." Harry gritted his teeth, forcing himself to look at the image, to acknowledge it, to accept it. "I am not nothing," he said, and his voice was steady. "I am Harry Potter. And I will never join you." The image faded, and the next mirror showed him something else, a vision of the future, of a world where dragons and wizards lived in peace, where Harry was celebrated as a hero. He saw himself standing tall, his dragon at his side, the world at his feet. "All of this can be yours," a voice whispered. "All you have to do is take it." Harry looked at the image, and he felt the temptation. It would be so easy to reach out, to claim the future that was being offered to him. But something held him back. Something told him that this was a trap. "I don't want to be a hero," Harry said. "I just want to do what's right." The image faded, and the final mirror showed Harry himself, not as he was, but as he could be. The reflection was older, stronger, his eyes blazing with power. He wore robes of silver and blue, and a crown of dragon scales rested on his brow. "Who are you?" Harry asked. "I am you," the reflection said. "I am what you will become, if you have the courage to accept it." "What do I have to do?" "Accept yourself," the reflection said. "Accept all of yourself, the fear, the anger, the love, the hope. Accept that you are worthy of this power, this bond, this destiny. And never, ever doubt that you can change the world." Harry looked at the reflection, and for a moment, he saw himself clearly for the first time. He saw the boy who had been locked in a cupboard, the boy who had been told he was worthless, the boy who had somehow managed to find hope in the darkest of places. He saw the dragon rider, the last rider, the one who would lead the dragons back to the light. "I accept," he said, and his voice was sure. The mirrors shattered, and Harry was standing in an empty chamber. His heart was pounding, his hands were shaking, but he felt different. Stronger. More sure of himself than he'd ever been. "Harry!" Midnight's voice was urgent, and Harry turned to see her rushing toward him. "Are you all right? What happened?" "I'm fine," Harry said, and for the first time, he meant it. "I think I passed the test." Midnight examined him closely, her silver eyes searching his face. Then she smiled, an expression that was surprisingly human on her dragon features. "You did," she said. "You passed. You're a true rider now." Harry felt a surge of pride, followed by a wave of exhaustion. He leaned against Midnight, letting her warmth seep into him. "What happens now?" he asked. "No," Midnight said. "We prepare for what's coming." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Harry trained harder than ever, pushing himself to his limits and beyond. He learned to fly at incredible speeds, to cast spells that would have been impossible without the bond. He learned to communicate with Midnight without words, their thoughts flowing together like water. And he learned about the Dragon Council. It happened on a night when the stars were particularly bright, and the magic in the air felt charged with possibility. Harry and Midnight were flying over the sanctuary, practicing their aerial maneuvers, when Midnight suddenly banked and descended toward a platform that Harry had never seen before. "What is it?" Harry asked, sliding off her back. "Look," Midnight said, nodding toward the sky. Harry looked up, and his jaw dropped. Dragons? Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, circling in the air above the sanctuary. They were of every size and shape, their scales shimmering in the starlight. They were beautiful and terrifying, and Harry felt his heart swell at the sight of them. "What are they doing here?" Harry whispered. "They've come," Midnight said, and her voice was filled with awe. "They've come to welcome you." The Dragon Council has awakened. The largest dragon descended, landing on the platform in front of Harry. It was enormous, its scales a deep, burnished gold, its eyes blazing with ancient wisdom. Harry felt its gaze on him, felt the weight of its power pressing down on him, and he forced himself to stand tall. "You are the last rider," the dragon said, its voice rumbling in his mind. "We have sensed you. We have come to witness your awakening." "I'm just Harry," Harry said, but the words felt hollow now. He was no longer just Harry. He was something more. "We know who you are," the dragon said. "We have known for 1,000 years. We have been waiting for this moment. What do you want from me?" The dragon was silent for a long moment. Then it said, "We want you to lead us. The world is changing, Harry Potter. Darkness is rising, and the dragons are needed once more. We need a leader. We need you." Harry felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He was just a boy, just a 7-year-old who didn't understand half of what was happening. But the dragon was looking at him with such trust, such hope, and Harry knew he couldn't refuse. "I'll do my best," he said. "I can't promise I'll be perfect. But I'll try. I'll try my hardest." The dragon inclined its head. "That is all we ask." And then, one by one, the dragons began to disappear, fading into the night sky like wisps of smoke. The golden dragon remained, watching Harry with eyes that held 1,000 years of wisdom. "We will be watching," it said. "When the time comes, we will be there. You are not alone, Harry Potter. You will never be alone." The dragon disappeared, and Harry was left standing on the platform, his heart pounding. "What just happened?" he asked, turning to Midnight. "Something amazing," Midnight said. "Something that hasn't happened in 1,000 years. The Dragon Council has acknowledged you. You are the last rider now. The true last rider." Harry felt a tear slide down his cheek. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "You are ready," Midnight said. "You've always been ready. You just had to believe it." Harry nodded, wiping the tear away. "Okay. Then let's get ready for what's coming." The days that followed were filled with preparation. Harry learned about the enemies he would face, the battles he would fight, the sacrifices he would have to make. He learned about the dark wizards who were hunting him, the dragon hunters who wanted to capture Midnight and use her for their own purposes. He learned about the ancient prophecy that said he would be the one to bring the dragons back to the world, to restore the order of the riders, to usher in a new age of peace and prosperity. It was a lot to take in. But Harry was stronger now, more sure of himself than he'd ever been. He faced the challenges with courage, with determination, with the unshakable belief that he could make a difference. And through it all, Midnight was by his side. "You know," Harry said one night, as they sat together on the platform, watching the stars, "I used to think I was cursed. I used to think that the Dursleys were right about me, that I was worthless and nobody would ever want me." "That's not true," Midnight said. "You are the most wanted person in the world." Harry laughed, a sound that was both happy and sad. "I guess I am. But it's not because of the Dursleys. It's because of you. Because of the bond. The bond chose you," Midnight said. "But I would have chosen you anyway. You are the bravest person I have ever known. And I am honored to be your dragon." Harry reached out, touching her snout. "I'm honored to be your rider." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. The future was uncertain. The road ahead filled with danger. But Harry wasn't afraid anymore. He had Midnight. He had the bond. He had the trust of the dragons. And together, they would face whatever came their way. The next morning, Harry woke to find a message waiting for him. It was a small scroll, tied with a silver ribbon, and it bore the seal of Albus Dumbledore. "Dear Harry," the message read, "I have heard of your awakening. I am both proud and concerned. The forces of darkness are gathering, and they know what you are. You must be careful, my boy. You must be strong. I will be in touch soon. Until then, stay safe. And remember, you are never alone." Harry read the message 3 times, his heart pounding. Dumbledore knew. Dumbledore had heard about the Dragon Council, about the acknowledgement, about everything. What does it mean? Harry asked, showing the message to Midnight. It means, Midnight said slowly, that we can't hide anymore. The world knows what we are. And we have to be ready for whatever comes next. Harry nodded, folding the message carefully. Then let's get ready. The training intensified. Harry learned new spells, new techniques, new ways to use the bond. He pushed himself harder than ever, determined to be ready for the challenges that lay ahead. And somewhere, deep in the bowels of the earth, the dragons stirred. The ancient magic that had been dormant for 1,000 years was waking, pulsing with a power that had not been felt in centuries. The Dragon Council had acknowledged the last rider, and the dragons were returning to the world. The sanctuary, which had been silent for so long, began to come alive. The statues of the dragons seemed to move, their stone eyes tracking Harry as he passed. The bones in the Hall of Dragons pulsed with a light that was both beautiful and terrifying. And the ancient texts in the library began to glow, their words becoming visible to anyone who had the eyes to see. Harry felt it all through the bond, felt the awakening of the dragons like a surge of electricity through his veins. It was overwhelming and wonderful, and he knew in his heart that everything was about to change. Are you ready? Midnight asked, her voice soft in his mind. Ready as I'll ever be, Harry said. Let's do this. The sanctuary opened its doors, and the last rider stepped out into the light. The new age had begun. Chapter 5, Merlin's Legacy. The sanctuary had changed. Harry felt it the moment he woke, a shift in the ancient magic that permeated every stone, every carving, every whisper of the past. The air was thicker, heavier with purpose, and the runes on his arm pulsed with a rhythm that matched the beating of his heart. Something was calling to him. Something ancient and powerful, buried deep within the heart of the sanctuary. Midnight was already awake, her silver eyes fixed on the far wall of their chamber. Harry followed her gaze and saw what he'd missed before, a door, seamless and hidden, its surface covered in runes that glowed with a soft, golden light. What is that? Harry whispered, his voice barely audible in the stillness. I don't know, Midnight replied, her voice equally soft. It wasn't there before. It appeared during the night, while we slept. Harry approached the door cautiously, his hand outstretched. The runes on his arm flared in response, and he felt a pull, a gentle tug that urged him forward. He pressed his palm against the surface, and the door swung open, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness. Should we go in? Harry asked, looking back at Midnight. We have to, she said. It's calling to you. This is where you're meant to be. Harry took a deep breath and stepped through the doorway. Midnight followed close behind, her warmth a reassuring presence at his back. The corridor was long and winding, its walls lined with tapestries that depicted scenes from a time long past. Harry saw dragons and riders, battles and victories, moments of triumph and moments of sorrow. The images seemed to move as he passed, the figures turning to watch him with eyes that held the weight of centuries. At the end of the corridor was another door, larger than the first, its surface covered in the same golden runes. Harry pushed it open, and his breath caught in his throat. The chamber was circular, its walls lined with bookshelves that stretched from floor to ceiling. The books were ancient, their spines cracking with age, their pages yellowed and fragile. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on the pedestal sat a portrait. The portrait was of a man, tall and thin, with a long white beard that reached his chest. His robes were deep blue, embroidered with silver thread, and his eyes were the color of the sky at twilight. He was the most regal figure Harry had ever seen, and something about him felt achingly familiar. Welcome, the portrait said, its voice warm and musical. I have been expecting you. Harry's heart raced. Who are you? The portrait smiled, and the expression was both kind and knowing. My name is Merlin. I was the first of the dragon riders, the one who forged the bond between wizard and dragon. And I have been waiting for you, Harry Potter, for a very long time. Harry stared at the portrait, his mouth hanging open. Merlin. The Merlin. The greatest wizard who had ever lived, the one who had shaped the very foundations of magic, the one whose name was whispered in awe by every witch and wizard who had ever lived. I don't understand, Harry said, shaking his head. You're Merlin. But you're a portrait. How are you talking to me? I am more than a portrait, Merlin said. I am a memory, a fragment of my soul, preserved by the ancient magic of the riders. I was placed here to guide the last rider when he or she finally appeared. And now you are here. Harry felt his knees go weak. He stumbled to a chair that seemed to appear out of nowhere, collapsing into it. Midnight pressed against his side, her warmth anchoring him. Why me? Harry asked. Why did the bond choose me? Merlin's eyes twinkled. Because you are worthy, Harry. You have a pure heart, a brave soul, and a strength that you do not yet fully understand. The bond chose you because you are exactly what the world needs. But I'm just a kid, Harry said. I don't know anything about being a rider. I don't know anything about anything. You know more than you think, Merlin said. And I am here to teach you the rest. The lessons began immediately, and Harry quickly realized that Merlin was unlike any teacher he'd ever had. The ancient wizard was patient and kind, but he pushed Harry harder than anyone else had ever pushed him. He taught Harry about the ancient magic, the magic that had existed long before wizards had learned to wield it. Magic is not a tool, Merlin explained one day, as Harry struggled to master a particularly difficult spell. It is a living thing. It breathes, it grows, it responds to the will of those who seek to use it. To truly master magic, you must understand that you are not controlling it. You are guiding it, shaping it, working with it as an equal partner. Harry frowned, concentrating on the spell. But how do I do that? How do I work with something I can't even see? Close your eyes, Merlin said. Reach out with your senses. Feel the magic in the air around you. Feel it in the bond between you and Midnight. Feel it in the runes on your arm. It is everywhere, Harry. You just have to learn to see it. Harry closed his eyes, and for a long moment, he felt nothing but the familiar warmth of Midnight beside him. Then, slowly, he began to sense something else. A presence, a power, a current of energy that flowed through everything around him. It was like water, like air, like the beating of his own heart. It was life itself. I can feel it, Harry whispered, his eyes still closed. It's beautiful. It is, Merlin agreed. And now that you can feel it, you can learn to use it. The training continued, and Harry grew stronger with each passing day. Merlin taught him about the ancient language of dragons, the words that could shape reality itself. He taught him about the magic of the bond, the way rider and dragon could combine their power to achieve the impossible. He taught him about combat, about strategy, about the sacrifices that true heroism required. It's a lot, Harry admitted one night, exhausted after a particularly grueling session. Sometimes I feel like I can't keep up. That is because you are trying to do everything at once, Merlin said. You must learn to trust the process. Trust the bond. Trust yourself. Harry nodded, though he wasn't sure he fully understood. But he kept working, kept pushing, kept striving to be the rider the world needed him to be. The weeks passed, and Harry's understanding of magic deepened. He learned to cast spells without a wand, to shape the ancient magic with nothing but his will. He learned to communicate with Midnight through the bond, their thoughts flowing together as seamlessly as water. He learned to fight, to defend, to protect. And he learned about Merlin's legacy. The dragon riders were the greatest force for good the magical world has ever known. Merlin said one afternoon, his voice heavy with nostalgia. We protected the innocent, fought against the forces of darkness, and ensured that magic remained a force for creation rather than destruction. But we were not perfect. We made mistakes. And those mistakes cost us everything. What happened? Harry asked. Why did the riders fall? Merlin's expression grew distant. We became arrogant. We thought we were invincible. And when the darkness rose against us, we were not prepared. The war that followed destroyed us. Most of the riders died. The rest went into hiding, their bonds fading over time. And the dragons retreated to the farthest corners of the earth, waiting for the day when a worthy rider would rise again. That day is now, Harry said. I'm going to bring the riders back. Merlin smiled, a sad but hopeful expression. I know you will, Harry. I have seen the future, in glimpses, in whispers. The darkness is rising, but so are you. And you will be the one to stop it. I don't know if I can, Harry admitted. I'm just one person. You are not just one person, Merlin said. You are the last rider. You carry the hopes of the dragons, the riders, the entire magical world. And you are not alone. You have Midnight. You have the bond. And you will have allies, friends, companions who will stand by you through the darkest of times. Will you be one of them? Merlin's expression softened. I will always be with you, Harry. My spirit lives in the magic of the sanctuary, in the bond that connects you to the dragons, in the legacy I have passed down through the centuries. I cannot fight the battle for you, but I can guide you. I can teach you. And I can believe in you. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. Thank you, Merlin. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Merlin said. Now, let us continue the training. There is much you still need to learn. The training became more intense. Merlin taught Harry about the dragon riders' greatest achievements and their greatest failures. He taught him about the ancient artifacts they had created, the weapons they had forged, the spells they had cast. He taught him about the enemies they had faced and the ones they had failed to defeat. You must learn to see the darkness, Merlin said one day, as Harry struggled to master a particularly difficult combat technique. Not just in others, but in yourself. The greatest riders were those who understood their own flaws, their own fears, their own capacity for evil. Only by acknowledging the darkness within can you hope to overcome it. Harry frowned, considering the words. Are you saying I could become evil? I am saying that everyone has the potential for evil, Merlin said. The difference is in the choices we make. You have chosen the path of light, Harry. But you must continue to choose it, every day, with every decision you make. That is the price of being a rider. Harry nodded, the weight of those words settling on his shoulders. He thought about his own fears, his own anger, the darkness that sometimes flickered at the edges of his consciousness. He knew he had to be careful. He knew he had to stay strong. I understand, he said. I'll make the right choices. I promise. Merlin smiled. I know you will, Harry. I know you will. The training continued, and Harry's skills grew. He learned to fly with Midnight as if they were one creature, their movements perfectly synchronized. He learned to cast spells that would have been impossible without the bond, spells of immense power and complexity. He learned to feel the magic around him, to bend it to his will, to shape it into whatever he needed. And he learned about the dark magic that was rising in the world beyond the sanctuary. Merlin told him about Voldemort, about the terror he had unleashed, about the followers who still sought to bring him back. He told him about the Dragon Hunters, the secret organization that hunted dragons for their blood and their power. He told him about the forces that were gathering against him, the darkness that was preparing to strike. You must be prepared, Merlin said. The enemies you face will be powerful. They will be cunning. And they will stop at nothing to destroy you. Then I'll be ready for them, Harry said. I'll fight them with everything I have. Merlin nodded, his eyes gleaming with pride. That is exactly the answer I hoped to hear. The final lesson came on a day when the sanctuary was bathed in golden light. Harry stood before Merlin's portrait, his heart pounding with anticipation. You have learned much, Harry, Merlin said. You have grown stronger, wiser, more powerful. But the most important lesson is still ahead of you. What is it? Harry asked. Merlin's expression was serious. To be a true rider, you must understand the meaning of sacrifice. You must be willing to give everything, your comfort, your safety, your very life, for the cause you serve. The bond you share with Midnight is the greatest gift you will ever receive, but it is also the greatest burden. You must protect it. You must protect her. No matter the cost. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. I would do anything for Midnight, he said. I would give my life for her. I know you would, Merlin said. And that is why you are worthy of the bond. But remember, Harry, Midnight would do the same for you. That is the beauty of the bond. It is a partnership, an equal sharing of love and sacrifice. Never forget that. I won't, Harry said. I promise. Merlin smiled, and for a moment, his ancient face seemed to glow with a light that was not of the portrait. Then you are ready, Harry Potter. You are ready to face the world. Go now. Go and fulfill your destiny. Harry felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, fear, hope, and he bowed his head in respect. Thank you, Merlin. Thank you for everything. Thank me by being the rider you were meant to be, Merlin said. Now go. The world is waiting for you. Harry turned to leave, but Merlin's voice stopped him at the door. One more thing, Harry. Harry turned back. Yes? Merlin's eyes twinkled. The dragons are coming. They are sensing your power, your awakening. The Dragon Council has already acknowledged you, but there are others, dragons who have been sleeping for centuries, waiting for the day when a true rider would rise again. They will come to you. They will need you. And you will need them. Harry nodded. I'll be ready for them. I know you will, Harry. I know you will. Harry left the chamber, Midnight at his side, and walked through the corridors of the sanctuary with a new sense of purpose. The training was over, the lessons learned. Now it was time to put everything he'd been taught into practice. The world is waiting for us, Harry said, looking up at the glowing ceiling of the sanctuary. We can't hide anymore. Midnight pressed against him, her warmth seeping into his bones. Then we won't hide. We'll face the world together, as we were meant to do. Harry nodded, a smile spreading across his face. Together. They walked out of the sanctuary, into the light of the outside world. The trees rustled in the breeze, the birds sang, and the sky stretched out above them, endless and full of promise. Harry was no longer the boy who had been locked in a cupboard, the boy who had been told he was worthless. He was a dragon rider, the last rider, the one who would bring the dragons back to the world. And he was ready. The days that followed were filled with preparation. Harry practiced his spells, honed his skills, strengthened the bond with Midnight. He explored the sanctuary, discovering new rooms, new artifacts, new secrets. He learned the history of the dragon riders in more detail, their triumphs and their tragedies, their rise and their fall. And he learned about the future that awaited him. The darkness is gathering, Merlin told him, during one of their final sessions. Voldemort's followers are growing bolder, the dragon hunters more desperate. They know what you are, Harry. They will try to destroy you. Let them try, Harry said, his voice filled with a confidence he hadn't known he possessed. I'll be ready for them. I know you will, Merlin said. But you must also know that you cannot face this enemy alone. You will need allies, friends, companions. The bond with Midnight is your greatest strength, but it is not your only one. Harry frowned. What do you mean? Merlin smiled, and for a moment, Harry saw a hint of mischief in his ancient eyes. You will understand in time. For now, trust that you will find the help you need. The world is full of people who believe in you, Harry. You just have to be willing to let them in. Harry nodded, though he didn't fully understand. But he trusted Merlin. He trusted the bond. And he trusted himself. Okay, he said. I'll be ready. The final day arrived, and Harry knew it was time to leave. The sanctuary had taught him everything it could, and now he had to take what he'd learned and use it in the world. Are you ready? Midnight asked, her voice soft in his mind. Ready as I'll ever be, Harry said. Let's go. They walked out of the sanctuary together, leaving behind the ancient halls and the quiet whispers of the past. Harry looked back one last time, his heart full of gratitude for everything he'd found there. "Thank you," he whispered to Merlin, to the first riders, to the dragons who had trusted him with their legacy. "Thank you for everything." The sanctuary glowed, a pulse of golden light that seemed to say, "You're welcome. Go. Fulfill your destiny." Harry turned away, climbed onto Midnight's back, and took to the sky. The wind rushed past him, cool and clean, and Harry felt a surge of joy unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He was flying, really flying, with midnight beneath him and the world spread out below. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Where are we going?" Midnight asked. "To the only place we can go," Harry said. "To the world. To the future. To whatever comes next." They flew through the night, stars streaking past them like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Harry felt the bond humming between them, a constant source of warmth and strength. He felt the magic crackling beneath his skin, ready to be unleashed. Harry Potter was no longer just a boy. He was a dragon rider, the last rider, the one who would change everything. And the world had better be ready. Chapter 6, Gringotts' Shocking Discovery. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when the letter arrived. It was carried by an owl, not Hedwig, who had yet to appear in Harry's life, but a sleek, gray creature that seemed to materialize out of the mist that clung to the sanctuary's entrance. The owl dropped the letter at Harry's feet and was gone before he could even blink. Harry bent down, his fingers trembling slightly as he picked up the thick parchment. It bore the seal of Gringotts' Wizarding Bank, an elaborate crest of crossed swords and a fiery dragon that seemed to move as he watched. Harry's heart began to race. "What is it?" Midnight asked, pressing close to read over his shoulder. "It's from Gringotts," Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The goblins. They want me to come to the bank. They say there's been a discovery." "A discovery?" Midnight's silver eyes narrowed. "What kind of discovery?" Harry unfolded the letter, scanning the elegant script. The words were formal, precise, and chilling in their implications. "Dear Mr. Potter, it has come to our attention through a routine magical scan that you bear the ancient mark of the Dragon Riders. This mark has not been detected in over 1,000 years, and its appearance on your person has triggered protocols that have lain dormant for centuries. By the laws of magical Britain, the bearer of the Dragon Rider mark is automatically granted the status of an independent magical lord, protected by ancient wizarding law. This status carries with it certain rights, privileges, and responsibilities that must be discussed in person. We request your presence at Gringotts' Wizarding Bank at your earliest convenience. Please do not delay. Your safety and the security of your status depend on it. Sincerely, Ragnarok, Chief Goblin of Gringotts. Harry read the letter 3 times, each reading sending a fresh wave of shock through his system. Independent magical lord. Protected by ancient wizarding law. The words danced in front of his eyes, refusing to make sense. Independent magical lord, Harry whispered. What does that mean? It means you're not just a wizard anymore, Midnight said, her voice filled with a quiet awe. It means you're something more. Something the magical world hasn't seen in centuries. But I'm just a kid, Harry protested, the familiar refrain falling from his lips. I'm 7 years old. I can't be a lord. The law doesn't care about your age, Midnight said. The mark on your arm is proof of what you are. The goblins know it. The magical world will soon know it too. Harry looked down at his arm, at the runes that had appeared on the night of his bond with Midnight. They were faint now, barely visible in the pale morning light, but Harry could feel them pulsing beneath his skin, a constant reminder of who and what he was. What do I do? He asked, his voice shaking. We go to Gringotts, Midnight said. We find out what this means. And we prepare for whatever comes next. The journey to Gringotts was the longest Harry had ever taken. The sanctuary had placed them deep in a remote part of England, far from any wizarding settlement, and flying all the way to London would have taken hours. Instead, Midnight used a secret passageway, one of the many ancient pathways that the riders had built to move quickly between sanctuaries. They emerged in a small, dusty alcove in the heart of Diagon Alley. Harry had never been to the Wizarding shopping district before, and the sight that greeted him was overwhelming. The street was a riot of color and sound, filled with witches and wizards going about their daily business. The shops were crammed together, their windows displaying everything from broomsticks to cauldrons to magical creatures. Harry saw a shop selling owls, another selling robes, and a third that seemed to specialize in nothing but quills. But his attention was drawn to the massive white building at the end of the street. Gringotts Wizarding Bank towered above the other shops, its marble columns gleaming in the morning light. Goblins stood guard at the entrance, their armored uniforms making them look both formidable and slightly ridiculous. "That's it," Harry said, his voice barely a whisper. "That's where we're going." "Together," Midnight said. "We're going together." Harry nodded, steeling himself. He walked toward the bank, Midnight at his side, her presence a steady anchor in the chaos of the street. The goblins at the entrance eyed them warily, but they stepped aside, allowing Harry to pass. The interior of Gringotts was even more impressive than the exterior. The cavernous hall was filled with goblins working at tall desks, their quills scratching across parchment. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their candles flickering with magical light. And in the center of it all, a long counter stretched from one end of the hall to the other, manned by goblins who were helping customers with their banking needs. Harry approached the counter, his heart pounding. A goblin with a sharp face and piercing eyes looked up at him, and Harry felt a shiver run down his spine. "State your business," the goblin said, his voice clipped and businesslike. "I'm Harry Potter," Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I received a letter from Chief Goblin Ragnarok. He asked me to come?" The goblin's eyes widened. He looked at Harry, then at Midnight, then back at Harry. "The Dragon Rider," he breathed. "The last rider." "I guess so," Harry said, feeling suddenly self-conscious. The goblin nodded, his expression turning serious. "Wait here. I will inform the chief." He disappeared through a door behind the counter, leaving Harry standing in the middle of the bustling hall. Witches and wizards were staring at him, their whispers filling the air. Harry could feel their eyes on him, could hear their murmurs. "Is that the Potter boy? I heard he was a dragon rider now." "Impossible. There haven't been dragon riders in 1,000 years." Harry wanted to shrink into himself, to disappear from the sudden flood of attention. But Midnight pressed against him, her warmth a steady reassurance. "Stand tall," she murmured in his mind. "You are the last rider. You have nothing to be ashamed of." Harry straightened his shoulders, meeting the gazes of the curious witches and wizards with a confidence he didn't quite feel. The whispers continued, but Harry forced himself to ignore them. Ragnarok was waiting for him in an opulent office located deep in the bowels of the bank. The room was filled with ancient artifacts, their surfaces gleaming with magical light. Books lined the walls, their spines cracked with age, and the air was thick with the scent of parchment and incense. "Mr. Potter," Ragnarok said, rising from his chair. The goblin was tall for his kind, his face lined with age and wisdom. His eyes were sharp, missing nothing, and his fingers were adorned with rings that sparkled with magical gems. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me," Harry said, taking a seat across from the goblin's desk. Midnight curled up beside him, her silver eyes fixed on Ragnarok. Ragnarok's gaze shifted to the dragon, and a look of what might have been respect flickered across his face. "The Midnight Storm Dragon," he said. "A rare and powerful breed. You are fortunate to have bonded with such a creature." "I know," Harry said, reaching out to stroke Midnight's head. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." Ragnarok nodded, his expression turning serious. "Now to business. The magical skin detected the mark of the Dragon Rider on your arm. This mark is ancient, predating even the founding of Gringotts. It is a symbol of power, of authority, of a bond that transcends ordinary magic. The letter said something about independent magical lord." Harry said, leaning forward. What does that mean? Ragnar steepled his fingers, his eyes gleaming. It means that you, Harry Potter, are no longer subject to the authority of the Ministry of Magic or any other wizarding institution. The Dragon Rider mark grants you autonomy, protection, and a status that places you above the petty squabbles of the magical world. Harry blinked, struggling to process the information. But I'm 7 years old. How can I be above the ministry? The law does not care about age, Ragnar said, echoing Midnight's words. It cares about the mark. And the mark is absolute. You are a magical lord, Harry Potter, and no one, not the ministry, not Dumbledore, not even the Dark Lord himself, can change that. Harry felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He was powerful. He was protected. And he was, apparently, beyond the reach of anyone who might want to control him. What does this mean for me? He asked. Practically speaking? Ragnar's lips curved into a smile that was almost predatory. It means you have access to ancient vaults, to magical artifacts, to knowledge that has been sealed away for centuries. It means you can call upon the dragons, the goblins, the creatures of the magical world to aid you in your quest. It means you are free, Harry Potter. Truly free. Harry felt a surge of something, hope, excitement, fear course through him. He had never been free before. He had always been subject to the whims of others, to the cruelty of the Dursleys, to the manipulations of the magical world. But now, he could choose his own path. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for telling me. Ragnar inclined his head. The goblins have long respected the Dragon Riders. They were the greatest protectors of the magical world, and their fall was a tragedy. We are honored to serve you, Harry Potter. And we will do everything in our power to help you succeed. Harry reached out, shaking the goblin's hand. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Ragnar said. Now let us discuss the practicalities of your new status. The meeting lasted for hours. Ragnar explained the intricacies of Harry's new status as an independent magical lord, outlining the rights and responsibilities that came with it. Harry learned that he had access to a vault that had been sealed for over 1,000 years, a vault that contained artifacts, gold, and knowledge that had belonged to the first riders. You will need this, Ragnar said, handing Harry a key. The vault is deep beneath the bank, protected by ancient wards. Only the Dragon Rider can open it. The contents are yours by right. Harry took the key, his fingers trembling. What's in it? I cannot say, Ragnar said. The vault was sealed by the first riders themselves. Only you can open it. Only you can discover its secrets. Harry nodded, tucking the key into his pocket. I'll go there soon. When I'm ready. Of course, Ragnar said. But there is something else you should know. What? Ragnar's expression grew serious. The magical skin also detected the presence of the bond. It's stronger than anything we've ever seen, deeper than any recorded in history. The dragons are aware of it. They are coming, Harry Potter. They are all coming. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. How many? All of them, Ragnar said. Every dragon that still lives, every dragon that has been sleeping for centuries. They are waking up, Harry. And they are coming to you. Harry left Gringotts in a daze, Midnight at his side. The streets of Diagon Alley were still bustling, but Harry barely noticed. His mind was spinning, trying to process everything Ragnar had told him. Independent magical lord. Ancient vault. Dragons waking up. All of it was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. Are you okay? Midnight asked, her voice soft in his mind. I don't know, Harry admitted. I don't know what I am anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to be. You are Harry, Midnight said simply. That is enough. That has always been enough. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. Thank you, Midnight. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'll never have to find out, she said. I'm not going anywhere. They walked through Diagon Alley, their presence drawing stares from the witches and wizards around them. But Harry ignored them, focusing on Midnight, on the bond, on the future that lay ahead. "Where are we going?" Midnight asked. "To the vault," Harry said. "I need to see what's in there. I need to know what the first riders left for me." Midnight nodded. "Then that's where we'll go." They turned back toward Gringotts, their steps quick and sure. The goblins at the entrance bowed as they passed, their eyes filled with a respect that Harry still wasn't sure he'd earned. The journey to the vault was long and winding, taking them deep beneath the earth. They rode in a small cart that careened through tunnels lit by glowing crystals, the walls rushing past them in a blur of stone and magic. Finally, the cart came to a stop in front of a massive door. It was made of black stone, covered in runes that glowed with a faint, silver light. The runes matched the ones on Harry's arm, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "This is it," Harry whispered, stepping forward. "This is where the first riders left their legacy." He pressed his hand against the door, and the runes on his arm flared to life. The door swung open, revealing a chamber that was filled with treasure. Gold coins lay scattered across the floor, glittering in the dim light. Jeweled goblets and ancient weapons lined the walls, their surfaces gleaming with magical light. And in the center of the room, on a pedestal of black stone, sat a single object, a crown of silver and gold, set with jewels that sparkled like stars. Harry walked toward the pedestal, his heart pounding. The crown was beautiful, more beautiful than anything he'd ever seen. And as he reached out to touch it, he felt a surge of power rush through him. "This is the crown of the first riders," a voice said, and Harry turned to see a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman, tall and regal, her robes flowing with the magic of the ancient world. It belonged to the first dragon rider. "And now it belongs to you." "Who are you?" Harry asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I am the guardian of the vault," she said. "I have waited for 1,000 years for a rider to come. And now that you are here, I can finally fulfill my purpose." "What purpose?" The guardian smiled, a sad, ancient expression. "To teach you. To guide you. To help you become the rider you were meant to be." Harry looked at the crown, then at the guardian, and then at Midnight. He was standing on the edge of something immense, something that would change his life forever. "Teach me," he said. "Teach me everything." The lessons began immediately. The guardian taught Harry about the history of the riders, about their triumphs and their tragedies, about the sacrifices they had made. She taught him about the magic of the bond, the power of the dragons, the secrets of the ancient world. And she taught him about the challenges that lay ahead. "The darkness is rising, Harry," she said one day, her voice heavy with warning. "Voldemort's followers are growing bolder, the dragon hunters more desperate. They will not rest until they have destroyed you. You must be ready." "I will be," Harry said. "I'll fight them with everything I have." "I know you will," the guardian said. "But you must also know that you cannot do this alone. You will need allies, friends, companions. The bond with Midnight is your greatest strength, but it is not your only one." Harry nodded, remembering Merlin's words. "I understand. I'll find the help I need." "Good," the guardian said. "Now let us continue the training. There is much you still need to learn." Weeks passed, and Harry grew stronger. He learned to channel the power of the crown, to use it to amplify his magic and protect himself from harm. He learned to fight with ancient weapons, to wield them with a skill that would have impressed even the greatest warriors of old. And he learned to trust himself, to believe in his own abilities, to embrace the bond that made him who he was. The vault became his home, a sanctuary of ancient magic and hidden knowledge. But Harry knew that he couldn't stay there forever. The world was calling to him, demanding that he step out of the shadows and claim his destiny. "It's time," he said one night, looking at Midnight and the Guardian. "I can't hide anymore. I have to go out there and face what's coming." The Guardian nodded, her expression proud. "You are ready, Harry. Go. Fulfill your destiny." Harry climbed onto Midnight's back, the crown on his head and the power of the ancient riders surging through his veins. He flew out of the vault, through the tunnels, into the light of the surface world. And when he emerged, he found the world waiting for him. The news of Harry's status had spread. The magical world was buzzing with rumors, whispers, and speculation. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, was now something more, a dragon rider, a magical lord, a figure of immense power and potential. The Ministry was scrambling to respond. They had never faced anything like this before, a 7-year-old who was beyond their authority, beyond their control. Dumbledore was watching, waiting, trying to understand what Harry had become. And Voldemort's followers were plotting, scheming, searching for ways to bring him down. But Harry didn't care. He had midnight. He had the crown. He had the bond. And he had a destiny to fulfill. The first challenge came sooner than expected. Harry was flying over London, Midnight's wings catching the wind as they soared above the city. The sky was clear, the stars bright, and for a moment, Harry felt at peace. Then he felt it, a surge of dark magic, powerful and malevolent, rising from somewhere below. Harry looked down and saw a group of figures in the street, their robes swirling around them as they cast spells at a terrified family of wizards. Dragon? Hunters? Midnight growled, her voice filled with fury. They're attacking innocent people. Harry felt the anger rise in him, hot and fierce. We have to stop them. Without hesitation, Midnight dove toward the street, her wings folded against her body. Harry clung to her, his heart pounding, as they plummeted toward the ground. The dragon hunters looked up, their eyes widening in shock. They hadn't expected a dragon, hadn't expected a rider, to appear from the darkness. Stop! Harry shouted, his voice echoing with the power of the ancient riders. Stop right now! One of the hunters laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. The boy. The last rider. You've come to us, just as we hoped. The hunter raised his wand, casting a spell that shot toward Midnight like a bolt of darkness. Harry reacted instinctively, drawing on the bond to conjure a shield that deflected the spell. You won't hurt her, Harry said, his voice cold and hard. You won't hurt anyone. The hunters advanced, their wands raised. Harry felt the surge of ancient magic inside him, felt the crown on his head pulsing with power. He reached out, channeling the magic through the bond, and a wave of silver light erupted from him, knocking the hunters off their feet. Get out of here, Harry said, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. Get out and don't come back. The hunters scrambled to their feet, their eyes wide with fear. They ran, disappearing into the darkness of the night. Harry stood there, his breath coming in gasps, the power of the ancient riders still crackling around him. He had done it. He had defended the innocent, stood up against the darkness, used his power for good. You did it, Midnight said, her voice filled with pride. You stopped them. Harry nodded, feeling a surge of emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. We did it. Together. He looked up at the sky, at the stars shining down on them. The world was still dangerous, still full of challenges and enemies. But Harry wasn't afraid anymore. He was the last rider. And he would protect this world, with his dragon, his bond, and his heart. The new age had truly begun. Chapter 7, Raising a Dragon in Secret. The aftermath of the attack on the dragon hunters had left Harry buzzing with a strange mixture of triumph and terror. He had done it. He had actually fought back, protected innocent people, driven the darkness away. But the victory had come at a cost. The hunters had seen him, had seen Midnight, had seen the crown blazing on his head. They knew who he was now. They knew what he was. And they would not rest until they had captured him. Harry, Midnight said, her voice cutting through his spiraling thoughts. We need to go. More will come. Harry nodded, climbing onto her back. Where can we go? The sanctuary isn't safe anymore. They know about it now. They'll find it. Then we find somewhere else, Midnight said. Somewhere they won't think to look. They flew through the night, the cold wind whipping against Harry's face. His mind raced, trying to think of a place where they could hide, where they could be safe. But every idea that came to him was quickly dismissed. The Dursleys' house was out of the question. The sanctuary was compromised. There was nowhere to go, nowhere to run. Except the Dursleys' garden, Harry said suddenly. It's the last place anyone would think to look. And I know a place there, a place where we can hide. Midnight banked, changing course. Are you sure? The Dursleys are dangerous. They're not dangerous, Harry said. They're just cruel. And they're afraid of magic. If we're careful, they'll never even know we're there. The flight to Privet Drive was nerve-wracking. Harry kept his eyes peeled for any sign of pursuit, but the sky remained empty, the stars shining down on them with their cold, indifferent light. They landed in the back garden of Number 4, the familiar patch of grass now a crater of memory and fear. Midnight looked around, her silver eyes taking in the small shed that had once been Harry's only refuge. This is where you lived? Yes, Harry said, his voice quiet. It's not much, but it's hidden. No one will think to look for a dragon in a garden shed. Midnight made a sound that was almost a snort. A dragon in a garden shed. The first riders would be horrified. Harry laughed, a small, broken sound. Probably. But it's all we've got. The shed was smaller than Harry remembered, its walls covered in cobwebs and dust. The lawnmower had been taken away, leaving only a pile of old blankets and a rusted toolbox in the corner. Harry worked quickly, clearing a space for Midnight, piling the blankets into a makeshift nest. It's not much, he said again, apologetically. I know you deserve better. This is fine, Midnight said, settling into the nest. I would sleep on the ground if it meant being with you. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. You're too good to me. You're too hard on yourself, Midnight replied. Now rest. We have a long day ahead of us. Harry curled up beside her, his head resting against her warm scales. Sleep came quickly, carrying him into a dreamless void. The days that followed were a delicate dance of secrecy and survival. Harry had to keep Midnight hidden from the Dursleys while also finding enough food and water to sustain her. The dragon was growing rapidly, her size doubling in the span of a few weeks. The shed, which had once seemed spacious, was now cramped and crowded. How am I supposed to feed you? Harry asked one morning, his voice filled with despair. You're eating more than I can steal from the kitchen. Midnight's silver eyes were calm, reassuring. I can hunt, Harry. The woods are full of deer, and I have the strength to catch them now. The woods are dangerous, Harry said. What if someone sees you? Then I will be careful, Midnight said. I will hunt at night, when no one is watching. You worry too much, Harry sighed, running his fingers through his hair. Someone has to worry. If we're not careful, we'll be caught. And then we will face whatever comes, Midnight said. Together. As we have always done. Harry nodded, though the fear still gnawed at him. He had to trust Midnight. He had no other choice. The next few weeks passed in a blur of routine. Harry would sneak out of the house at night, meeting Midnight in the garden. They would fly to the woods, where Midnight would hunt for food while Harry practiced his spells. The ancient magic was growing stronger, responding to his emotions with a power that was both exhilarating and terrifying. But it was the quiet moments that Harry treasured most. The moments when they would lie in the shed, their bodies pressed together, the bond humming between them like a second heartbeat. Harry would tell Midnight about his day, about the Dursleys' cruelty, about the loneliness that had been his constant companion for as long as he could remember. And Midnight would listen, her silver eyes filled with a love that Harry had never known. You deserve better than this, Midnight said one night, her voice soft. You deserve a home, a family, a life filled with happiness and peace. I have you, Harry said. That's enough. Not forever, Midnight said. One day you'll have more. One day you'll have everything you've ever wanted. Harry smiled, though the words felt like a distant dream. Maybe. But for now, I'm happy. I'm happy because I have you. Midnight pressed her head against his chest, and Harry felt a surge of warmth flow through him. The bond was stronger than ever, pulsing with a light that seemed to fill the entire shed. I love you, Harry, Midnight whispered in his mind. I love you too, Harry said, his voice thick with emotion. I love you too. The first sign that something had changed came on a Thursday afternoon. Harry was in the garden, weeding as he had been instructed, when he felt a shift in the air. A presence, familiar and reassuring, settling in the branches of the oak tree that stood at the edge of the yard. A bird. No, not a bird. An owl. The owl was beautiful, its feathers a pure white that seemed to glow in the sunlight. It was watching him, its golden eyes fixed on his face with an intelligence that was almost human. Hello? Harry said, setting down his weeding tool. Who are you? The owl hooted softly, and Harry felt a surge of recognition. This was no ordinary owl. This was a magical creature, one that had been sent to him for a purpose. Are you here for me? Harry asked. The owl flew down from the branch, landing on Harry's shoulder. It was light, barely heavier than the weight of his own thoughts. And as it settled against his neck, Harry felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of connection that was almost as strong as the bond he shared with Midnight. Her name is Hedwig, a voice said, and Harry spun around to see a small, wrinkled figure standing at the edge of the garden. The figure was a house elf, its ears large and its eyes enormous. It wore a tea towel wrapped around its body, and its face was filled with a mixture of fear and reverence. Who are you? Harry asked, his heart pounding. I is Dobby, sir, the house elf said. Dobby is a free elf, but Dobby has come to serve the great Harry Potter. Serve me? Harry shook his head. I don't need anyone to serve me. I'm just Harry. You is not just Harry, Dobby said, his voice filled with awe. You is the last rider, the one who will save us all. Dobby has heard the whispers, the rumors, the prophecies. Dobby knows what you are. Harry stared at the house elf, his mind racing. A free elf. A servant who had come to help him. It was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. I don't understand, Harry said. Why would a free elf want to serve me? Because Dobby believes in you, the elf said. Dobby believes in the bond, in the dragons, in the future you will create. Dobby will help you, Harry Potter. Dobby will protect you. Harry felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, confusion, fear, welling up inside him. I don't know what to say. Say you will accept Dobby's help, the elf said. Say you will let Dobby serve you. Harry looked at the owl on his shoulder, at the elf in front of him, at the dragon waiting in the shed. He was surrounded by creatures who believed in him, who were willing to sacrifice everything to help him. Okay, Harry said, his voice barely a whisper. I accept your help. But you don't have to serve me. You can be my friend. That's enough. Dobby's eyes filled with tears. Dobby has never had a friend before. Dobby is honored. Harry smiled, reaching out to shake the elf's hand. Then let's be friends. And let's figure out how to keep Midnight safe. With Dobby's help, raising Midnight became easier. The house elf was able to find food, water, and supplies that Harry could never have stolen on his own. He built a small shelter for the dragon, reinforced the shed against detection, and created a network of magical wards that would alert them if anyone approached. You is a very kind master, Dobby said one day, as he set down a plate of roasted meat for Midnight. Dobby is proud to serve you. I told you, Harry said. I'm not your master. I'm your friend. Dobby's eyes glistened. Dobby has never had a friend before. Dobby will never forget this. Harry reached out, patting the elf's head. I won't forget either, Dobby. I promise. The owl Hedwig had become a constant presence in Harry's life. She was more than a pet, more than a messenger. She was a companion, a friend, a source of comfort in the lonely days. Harry would talk to her for hours, telling her about his hopes and his fears, his dreams and his nightmares. And Hedwig would listen, her golden eyes filled with understanding. Sometimes I wish I could talk to you the way I talk to Midnight, Harry told her one night. I think you'd have a lot to say. Hedwig hooted softly, nuzzling against his cheek. Harry felt a surge of warmth, a sense of connection that transcended words. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for being here." The magical birds were the next to arrive. They appeared one morning, a flock of bright, shimmering creatures that seemed to materialize out of thin air. They were beautiful, their feathers gleaming with a light that was almost otherworldly. And they immediately began to help, bringing food, building nests, creating a network of protection that surrounded the shed and the garden. "What are they?" Harry asked, staring at the birds in amazement. "They is magical creatures, sir," Dobby said. "They has come to help the last rider. They knows what you is, and they wants to protect you." Harry felt a lump form in his throat. "Why? Why would they want to protect me?" "Because you is the hope of the magical world," Dobby said. "You is the one who will bring the dragons back, who will restore the order of the riders. The creatures know this. They feels it in their bones." Harry looked at the birds, at the elf, at the dragon who was watching him with her silver eyes. He was surrounded by allies, by friends, by creatures who believed in him. "I won't let you down," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I promise." The forest creatures came next. They were shy at first, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. But slowly, they began to approach the shed, drawn by the magic that pulsed through the bond. Deer, foxes, rabbits, and even a few wolves gathered at the edge of the garden, their presence a silent testament to the power that Harry now wielded. "They is coming to pay homage," Dobby explained. "They knows you is the last rider, and they wants to show their respect." Harry knelt down, extending his hand to a curious fox. The animal sniffed his fingers, then pressed its head against his palm. Harry felt a surge of connection, a sense of kinship that transcended species. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for coming." Despite the help, the danger was never far away. Harry could feel the Dark Lord's followers circling, searching for any sign of him. The dragon hunters were out there, too, their spies everywhere. He had to be careful, had to be smart, had to be one step ahead of his enemies. "The wards is strong, sir," Dobby said one night, as they huddled in the shed. "But they is not invincible. If the hunters find us, they will break through. Then we'll fight," Harry said. "We'll fight with everything we have." "You is brave, Harry Potter," Dobby said. "Braver than Dobby could ever be." Harry shook his head. "I'm not brave. I'm just scared. But I'm not going to let that stop me." The months passed, and midnight grew. She was enormous now, her head brushing the ceiling of the shed, her wings folded tightly against her body. It was becoming harder and harder to keep her hidden, harder to pretend that everything was normal. "We can't stay here forever," Harry said one night, as he looked at the shed that had been their home for so long. "We need to find somewhere else, somewhere bigger." "Where?" Midnight asked. "I don't know," Harry admitted. "But we'll find something. We always do." Hedwig hooted softly, and Harry looked up to see her perched on the windowsill. She was holding a piece of parchment in her beak, her golden eyes fixed on him. "What is it?" Harry asked, taking the parchment from her. He unfolded it, reading the words that were written in an elegant, flowing script. "Dear Harry, I have learned of your situation. I understand the difficulties you face, and I want to help. There is a place, a sanctuary of sorts, where you and your dragon can be safe. It is hidden, protected by ancient magic, and known only to a few. I will send you the coordinates. Use them well. Yours, Albus Dumbledore." Harry read the letter 3 times, his heart pounding. Dumbledore knew. Dumbledore had found them. But instead of capturing them, instead of turning them over to the Ministry, he was offering help. "Should we trust him?" Midnight asked. "I don't know," Harry said. "But I don't think we have a choice." The coordinates led them to a remote island off the coast of Scotland. It was covered in mist, hidden from the eyes of the world by powerful wards. And in the center of the island stood a castle, small, but well fortified, its walls shimmering with ancient magic. "Is this it?" Harry asked, his voice filled with wonder. Yes, Midnight said. This is it. This is our home. They walked through the castle, exploring its rooms and corridors. It was dusty and abandoned, but it was safe. It was hidden. It was everything they had ever wanted. I can't believe it, Harry said, as he stood in the great hall. We have a home. Midnight pressed against him, her warmth seeping into his bones. We have a home, Harry. We have a home. Harry looked around the hall, at the walls that were covered in ancient tapestries, at the hearth that was waiting to be lit, at the stairs that led to rooms that would soon be filled with life. Thank you, Dumbledore, he whispered. Thank you for everything. The house elves arrived the next day. Dobby had sent word to his kin, and a small army of elves had come to help. They cleaned the castle, stocked the larders, and prepared the rooms for habitation. Within days, the castle was transformed, its walls gleaming, its windows shining, its hearths blazing with warmth. Welcome to your new home, Harry Potter, Dobby said, his voice filled with pride. We hope you likes it. I love it, Harry said, his voice thick with emotion. I love it so much. The magical birds came too, building nests in the rafters, singing songs that filled the halls with joy. The forest creatures gathered at the edge of the castle grounds, watching with their curious eyes. And Hedwig perched on Harry's shoulder, her presence a constant reminder of how far he had come. I never thought I'd have this, Harry said one night, as he sat in the great hall, Midnight at his side. I never thought I'd have a home. Now you do, Midnight said. And you'll never be alone again. Harry nodded, a smile spreading across his face. No. I'll never be alone again. Months passed, and the castle became a thriving sanctuary. Harry trained with Midnight, honing his skills, strengthening the bond. He learned new spells, new techniques, new ways to use the ancient magic. And he grew stronger, more confident, more ready for the challenges that lay ahead. But there were other changes too. The runes on Harry's arm had begun to spread, their silver lines branching out across his skin. They were beautiful and terrifying, a constant reminder of who and what he was. You is becoming more powerful, sir, Dobby said one day, his voice filled with awe. The mark of the Dragon Rider is growing strong. I can feel it, Harry said. It's like there's something inside me, something that's always been there, just waiting to come out. Then let it come out, Midnight said. Embrace it. It's who you are. Harry nodded, his eyes blazing with determination. I will. I promise. The day of the first full moon in the castle was magical. Harry stood on the castle ramparts, looking up at the sky. The moon was huge, bathing the world in silver light, and the stars were scattered across the darkness like diamonds. Midnight was beside him, her scales shimmering in the moonlight. Hedwig was perched on his shoulder, and Dobby stood nearby, his eyes filled with wonder. I can't believe this is real, Harry whispered. I can't believe this is my life now. It is real, Midnight said. And it is only the beginning. Harry looked out at the world, at the castle, at the creatures who had become his family. He felt the bond pulsing in his chest, felt the magic flowing through his veins, felt the future unfolding before him like a tapestry that was still being woven. I'm ready, he said. I'm ready for whatever comes next. I know you are, Midnight said. I've always known. The moon rose higher, and Harry Potter, the last rider, stood at the center of his new world. The journey was only beginning. Chapter 8. The Council of Dragons Awakens. The castle on the island had become a sanctuary in every sense of the word. Months had passed since Harry and Midnight had first arrived, and in that time, the ancient fortress had transformed into a thriving haven of magic and life. The walls hummed with protective wards, the gardens bloomed with enchanted flowers, and the halls echoed with the sounds of creatures who had come to find refuge under the last rider's protection. But something was changing. Harry could feel it in the air, in the earth, in the very fabric of the magic that surrounded them. The bond with Midnight had grown so strong that he could sense her thoughts before she formed them, could feel her emotions as if they were his own. And through that bond, He could feel something else, a stirring, a waking, a presence that had been dormant for centuries. Dragons? Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. All across Europe, they were awakening. "It's happening," Midnight said one night, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. "They can feel you, Harry. They can feel the bond. They know the last rider has returned." Harry stood beside her on the castle ramparts, the wind whipping through his hair. "How many?" "All of them," Midnight said. "Every dragon that still lives. They're waking up, and they're coming." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "Coming here? To the castle?" "Eventually," Midnight said. "But first they will gather. They will convene. The Dragon Council has been asleep for 1,000 years, but now it is stirring. They will want to see you, to judge you, to decide if you are worthy of leading them." Harry's heart lurched. "Judge me?" I thought. "They already acknowledged me. The Golden Dragon, the one who appeared at the sanctuary." "That was just the beginning," Midnight said. "The Golden Dragon was a herald, a messenger. The Council itself is something else entirely. It is made up of the oldest, wisest, most powerful dragons in existence. They have been sleeping for centuries, waiting for the day when a rider would rise again. And now that day has come." Harry swallowed hard. "What do they want from me?" Midnight turned to look at him, her silver eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. "They want to test you, Harry. They want to see if you are truly worthy of the bond. If you pass their tests, you will be recognized as the supreme rider, the leader of all dragons. If you fail..." "What happens if I fail?" Midnight was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "They will not harm you. But they will not help you either. The dragons will remain scattered, sleeping, waiting for another rider who might be worthy. And the darkness will continue to rise." Harry felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He was not just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the dragons, for the magical world, for the future of everything. "Then I won't fail," he said, his voice steady. "I'll prove to them that I'm worthy. I'll prove to them that the bond chose the right person." "I know you will," Midnight said. "I've always known." The weeks that followed were filled with preparation. Harry trained harder than ever, pushing himself to his limits and beyond. He practiced the ancient spells, honed his combat skills, strengthened the bond with Midnight. The runes on his arm had spread further, covering his entire forearm in silver lines that pulsed with a life of their own. Dobby and the other house elves worked tirelessly to prepare the castle for the arrival of the dragons. They reinforced the wards, stocked the larders, and created a vast clearing in the forest where the council could gather. The magical birds sang songs of welcome, and the forest creatures watched with wide, curious eyes. "They is coming," Dobby said one morning, his voice filled with awe. "The dragons is coming. Dobby can feel them in the air." Harry looked up at the sky, and his breath caught in his throat. The clouds were parting, revealing a formation of shapes that made his heart race. Dragons? Dozens of them. Their wings caught the light, their scales shimmering with colors that ranged from deep emerald to brilliant gold. "They're here," Harry whispered. "They're actually here." Midnight pressed against him, her warmth a steady anchor. "Stay calm, Harry. Remember who you are. Remember the bond. They are here to see you, to test you, to judge you. But they are also here to welcome you." Harry nodded, steeling himself. He walked out to the clearing, Midnight at his side, and watched as the dragons descended. They were magnificent. Each one was unique, with its own color, its own shape, its own presence. Some were massive, their wings blotting out the sun. Others were smaller, more slender, their movements fluid and graceful. But all of them radiated power, ancient and immense, and Harry could feel their gaze on him like a physical weight. The dragons landed in the clearing, their massive bodies creating a ring around Harry and Midnight. They were silent, watching, waiting. And then, from the center of the group, a dragon stepped forward. It was enormous, its scales a deep crimson that seemed to glow with an inner fire. Its eyes were the color of molten gold, and its voice, when it spoke, rumbled through Harry's mind like thunder. "Harry Potter," the dragon said. "The last rider. We have come to see you, to judge you, to decide if you are worthy of leading the dragons." Harry straightened his shoulders, meeting the dragon's gaze. "I am ready." The dragon's eyes narrowed. "Are you? The council will test you, Harry Potter. We will push you to your limits, challenge your courage, your wisdom, your heart. Only if you pass all our tests will you be recognized as the supreme rider." "I understand," Harry said. "I'll do whatever it takes." The dragon inclined its head. "Then let the trials begin." The first trial was courage. Harry was led to the edge of a cliff that overlooked a vast, dark chasm. The wind howled around him, whipping his hair into his eyes. The crimson dragon stood beside him, its golden eyes fixed on the abyss below. "To be a dragon rider, you must face your greatest fear," the dragon said. "You must confront the darkness within yourself and emerge victorious. Below this cliff lies a creature of nightmare, a manifestation of your deepest terror. You must descend into the chasm, face the creature, and return. If you succeed, you will prove your courage. If you fail—" "I won't fail," Harry said, his voice steady. He looked down at the chasm, and his heart pounded. The darkness seemed to pulse, to writhe, to reach for him with grasping fingers. He could feel the fear rising in his chest, could feel the memories of the cupboard, the Dursleys, the loneliness, the pain. This was what the creature would use against him. "Midnight," he said, reaching out through the bond. "I need you to stay here. This is something I have to face alone. Harry, I know you want to help. But this is my trial. I have to do this on my own." Midnight's presence receded, but Harry could still feel her love, her belief in him, her unwavering support. He took a deep breath, and then he jumped. The fall was terrifying. The wind screamed past him, and the darkness swallowed him whole. But Harry forced himself to stay calm, to focus on the bond, on the love that surrounded him. He hit the ground hard, his legs buckling beneath him, but he forced himself to stand. The creature emerged from the shadows. It was formless, shifting, a nightmare made real. It wore the face of Vernon Dursley, then Petunia, then Dudley, then 1,000 other faces that had made his life a misery. "You are nothing," the creature hissed. "You are worthless. No one will ever love you." Harry felt the words strike him like physical blows. He wanted to run, to hide, to curl up in a ball and disappear. But he forced himself to stand tall, to meet the creature's gaze. "You're wrong," he said, his voice shaking but steady. "I am not nothing. I am Harry Potter, the last rider. I am loved by Midnight, by Dobby, by Hedwig, by all the creatures who believe in me. And I will not let you break me." The creature lunged, and Harry raised his hand. The runes on his arm blazed with silver fire, and a wave of light erupted from him, banishing the darkness. The creature screamed, its form dissolving into nothing. Harry stood in the silence, his heart pounding. He had done it. He had faced his fear and emerged victorious. He looked up at the sky, at the light that was filtering down from above. "I'm ready," he said. "Take me back." The climb was long and difficult, but Harry didn't stop. He pushed himself harder than he'd ever pushed himself, driven by a determination that was stronger than any fear. When he finally emerged at the top, the dragons were waiting for him. "You have passed the first trial," the Crimson Dragon said. "You have proven your courage. But there are more trials to come." "Then bring them on," Harry said. "I'm ready." The second trial was wisdom. Harry was led to a chamber deep within the castle, filled with ancient texts and artifacts. The walls were covered in runes, and the air was thick with the scent of parchment and incense. "To be a dragon rider, you must possess wisdom," the Crimson Dragon said. "You must understand the history of the riders, the lessons of the past, the mistakes that were made. In this chamber, you will find the answers to 3 questions. If you can answer them correctly, you will prove your wisdom. If you fail—" "I won't fail," Harry said. "I've been studying. I know the history." The dragon's eyes gleamed. Then begin. The first question was about the first riders. Harry closed his eyes, reaching into the depths of his memory. Merlin had taught him this. The Guardian had taught him this. The knowledge was there, waiting to be accessed. They were the greatest wizards of their age, Harry said, reciting the words that had been burned into his memory. They bonded with the dragons, using their combined power to protect the magical world from darkness. But they became arrogant, overconfident, and they were destroyed by the very darkness they had sworn to fight. Correct, the dragon said. The second question, what caused the fall of the riders? Harry paused, thinking carefully. A faction of dark wizards rose up against them, jealous of their power. The riders were outnumbered, their allies betrayed them, and they were scattered. The dragons retreated to the farthest corners of the earth, and the riders went into hiding, their bonds fading over time. Correct, the dragon said. The third question, how can the riders be restored? Harry's heart pounded. This was the most important question, the one that would determine everything. He thought about Merlin's words, about the Guardian's teachings, about the bond that connected him to Midnight. By a new rider, he said slowly. Someone worthy of the bond, someone who can unite the dragons, restore the order, and lead them against the darkness. That rider is me. The dragon was silent for a long moment. Then it inclined its head. You have passed the second trial. Your wisdom is genuine. But there is one more trial to come. Harry's heart sank. What is it? The trial of the heart, the dragon said. The most difficult trial of all. The third trial was the heart. Harry was led to a chamber that was empty except for a single pedestal in the center. On the pedestal sat a small, glowing object, a crystal that pulsed with a soft, silver light. To be a dragon rider, you must possess a pure heart, the Crimson Dragon said. You must be willing to sacrifice everything for the ones you love. In this chamber, you will be tested. The crystal will show you a vision of the future, a future where you must make an impossible choice. If you make the right choice, you will prove your heart. If you fail, I won't fail, Harry said, though his voice was less steady now. He had faced his fears, proven his wisdom, but this was different. This was about the deepest parts of himself. He reached out and touched the crystal. The vision hit him like a wave. He was standing on a battlefield, surrounded by the bodies of dragons and wizards. The sky was dark, filled with smoke and fire. And in the center of it all stood Voldemort, his red eyes blazing with triumph. Harry Potter, Voldemort hissed. The last rider. You have failed. Your friends are dead. Your dragon is dead. And soon, you will join them. Harry felt the despair wash over him. But then he heard a voice, soft and familiar. Don't give up, Harry. You're stronger than this. He turned, and he saw Midnight, not the real Midnight, but a vision of her, injured and dying. She was lying on the ground, her silver eyes fixed on him with a love that was stronger than any fear. Save them, she said. Save the dragons. Save the world. I'll be with you, always. Harry felt the tears stream down his face. I can't. Not without you. You can, Midnight said. You have to. The bond is forever, Harry. Even if I'm gone, I'll always be with you. The vision faded, and Harry found himself back in the chamber, the crystal cold and lifeless in his hands. He looked up at the Crimson Dragon, his eyes filled with tears. What was the right choice? He asked. The dragon's voice was soft. There was no right choice, Harry. Only a choice. And you made it. You chose to sacrifice everything for the ones you love. That is the mark of a true rider. Harry felt a surge of relief wash over him. Does that mean I passed? The Crimson Dragon inclined its head. You have passed all 3 trials, Harry Potter. You have proven your courage, your wisdom, and your heart. The Council recognizes you as the Supreme Rider, the leader of all dragons. Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had done it. He had proven himself worthy. The ceremony was held in the clearing, under the light of the full moon. The dragons had gathered, hundreds of them, their scales shimmering in the silver light. Harry stood at the center of the circle, Midnight at his side, his heart pounding with a mixture of pride and humility. The Crimson Dragon stepped forward, a crown of silver and gold in its claws. The crown was ancient, covered in runes that pulsed with a light of their own. "Harry Potter," the dragon said, its voice echoing through the clearing. "The last rider. You have proven yourself worthy of the bond. You have proven yourself worthy of leading the dragons. We crown you as the supreme rider, the one who will unite us all." The crown was placed on Harry's head, and a surge of power rushed through him. He felt the connection to every dragon in the circle, felt their thoughts, their emotions, their hopes and fears. It was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. "I don't know if I can do this," Harry whispered, his voice shaking. "I'm just Harry." "You are not just Harry," the Crimson Dragon said. "You are the Supreme Rider. And we will stand with you, always." Harry felt the tears stream down his face. He had never felt so loved, so supported, so accepted. He was no longer alone. He would never be alone again. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you all." The dragons roared, their voices rising to the sky. It was a sound of triumph, of hope, of a new beginning. And Harry stood at the center of it all, the crown on his head, Midnight at his side, ready to face whatever came next. The days that followed were filled with celebration. The dragons remained at the castle, their presence a constant reminder of the new alliance that had been forged. Harry spent hours with them, learning their names, their stories, their hopes and fears. He felt a deep connection to each one, a bond that was different from the one he shared with Midnight but just as powerful. "Can you believe this is real?" Harry asked Midnight one night, as they sat on the ramparts, watching the dragons fly overhead. "I can," Midnight said. "I always knew it would happen. I always knew you would be the one to unite us." Harry shook his head. "I didn't. I never thought I'd be anything special. I was just Harry, the boy in the cupboard." "You are so much more than that," Midnight said. "You always were. You just had to believe it." Harry smiled, resting his head against her side. "I believe it now. Because of you. Because of us," Midnight said. "Together." Harry looked up at the sky, at the dragons flying in formation, at the stars shining down on them. The world was still dangerous, still filled with challenges. But for the first time, Harry felt ready to face them. "Together," he agreed. "Always." The Dragon Council's acknowledgement had changed everything. News of Harry's coronation spread through the magical world like wildfire, stirring reactions of awe, fear, and hope. The ministry was divided, unsure how to respond to a supreme rider who was only 7 years old. Dumbledore watched from a distance, his plans shifting and adapting. And Voldemort's followers seethed with rage, their schemes intensified by the threat of a united dragon army. But Harry didn't care. He had the dragons. He had Midnight. He had the bond. And he would use them to protect the world, to fight the darkness, to ensure that the dragons would never again be hunted, never again be afraid. "We have a long road ahead," Harry said one night, as he looked out at the dragons. "But I'm not afraid anymore." "Neither am I," Midnight said. "Because I know we'll win." Harry smiled, the crown gleaming on his head. "I know we will too." The era of the Dragon Riders had truly begun. Chapter 9 Dumbledore Learns the Truth. The castle had become a fortress of dragon magic, its ancient walls pulsing with a power that had not been felt in centuries. Harry walked through the corridors with the confidence of a king, the crown of the Supreme Rider resting on his brow, the runes on his arm glowing with a soft, silver light. He was no longer the frightened boy who had stumbled out of the woods with a baby dragon at his side. He was something more, something ancient and powerful and destined for greatness. But even greatness could not shield him from the eyes that watched from the shadows. Albus Dumbledore had been observing Harry for years, ever since the night he had left the infant on the Dursleys' doorstep. He had watched the boy grow, had seen the flashes of accidental magic, had sensed the stirring of something deep and powerful within the child. But nothing had prepared him for the truth of what Harry had become. The owl arrived at the castle on a grey, overcast morning. It was a magnificent creature, its feathers a deep bronze, its eyes sharp and intelligent. It carried a letter sealed with the familiar wax crest of the Order of the Phoenix. Harry took the letter from the owl, his heart pounding. He had known this day would come. He had been expecting it, dreading it, preparing for it. Dumbledore had helped him, had given him the sanctuary, had guided him from afar. But now the old wizard wanted answers. Midnight. Harry called out through the bond. Dumbledore is coming. The dragon's presence filled his mind, warm and reassuring. I know. I sensed his approach. He is already at the edge of the island. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. How did he get past the wards? The wards are strong, but they were not designed to keep out a wizard of Dumbledore's power. Midnight said. He has been watching us, Harry. He has been waiting for this moment. Harry nodded, steeling himself. Then let's not keep him waiting. Dumbledore was waiting for him in the great hall. The old wizard stood by the hearth, his robes a deep purple embroidered with silver stars. His eyes, bright and piercing behind his half-moon spectacles, fixed on Harry with an expression that was both curious and wary. Harry, Dumbledore said, his voice warm but tinged with something that might have been unease. It is good to see you again. Harry walked toward him, Midnight at his side. The dragon's presence was a steady anchor, her silver eyes fixed on Dumbledore with a wariness that mirrored Harry's own. Professor Dumbledore, Harry said, his voice calm and measured. I didn't expect you to come in person. I felt that this was a conversation best had face to face. Dumbledore said. There are matters we must discuss, matters that cannot be entrusted to owls or letters. Harry nodded, gesturing for Dumbledore to sit. The old wizard settled into a chair by the fire, his eyes never leaving Harry's face. You have changed, Dumbledore observed. The boy I left with the Dursleys is gone. In his place stands something remarkable. Harry felt a flush of pride mixed with wariness. I've learned a lot. The Sanctuary, Merlin, the Dragon Council, they taught me what I am, what I can become. And what is it that you believe you can become, Harry? Harry met Dumbledore's gaze, his own eyes blazing with a fire that had not been there before. I am the Supreme Rider. I am the one who will unite the dragons, restore the order of the riders, and protect the magical world from the darkness that threatens it. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. Then he said, That is a heavy burden for a boy your age. I know, Harry said. But I didn't choose it. It chose me. And I'm not going to run away from it. Dumbledore nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. I have watched you, Harry. I have seen the magic you wield, the bond you share with your dragon, the power that flows through your veins. But I have also seen the danger. There are forces in this world that would do anything to destroy you, to use you for their own purposes. I know, Harry said. I've faced them. I've beaten them. Have you? Dumbledore leaned forward, his eyes intense. The dragon hunters, the dark wizards who serve Voldemort, they are just the beginning. There are forces older than Voldemort, older than the riders themselves, that are stirring in the shadows. They have sensed your awakening, Harry. And they are coming. Harry felt a chill run down his spine, but he refused to show his fear. Then I'll face them. I'll fight them. I'll protect the dragons and the magical world with everything I have. Dumbledore's expression softened, and for a moment, Harry saw something like pride in the old wizard's eyes. I believe you, Harry. I believe you would give everything to protect those you love. But you cannot do it alone. You will need allies, friends, guidance. I have allies, Harry said. I have Midnight. I have the dragons. I have the house elves and the magical creatures who believe in me. All of them are loyal. Dumbledore agreed. But they are not the only ones who can help you. There are people in the magical world who would stand by you, who would fight beside you, if only you would let them. Harry frowned, sensing the direction of the conversation. You mean the Order of the Phoenix? I mean those who believe in the cause of light, Dumbledore said. Those who have fought against the darkness for years, who have sacrificed everything to protect the innocent. They have heard of your awakening, Harry. They want to help. I don't know if I can trust them, Harry admitted. I don't know if I can trust anyone. Dumbledore nodded, his expression understanding. Trust is earned, Harry. It cannot be given freely. But I believe that you will find, in time, that there are people who are worthy of your trust. People who will prove themselves loyal, brave, and true. Harry was silent for a long moment, considering the old wizard's words. Then he said, Why are you here, Professor? You could have sent a message. You could have stayed away. But you came in person. Why? Dumbledore's eyes twinkled, but there was a seriousness beneath the warmth. Because I needed to see you, Harry. I needed to see for myself what you have become. And I needed to tell you the truth. The truth about what? Dumbledore leaned back in his chair, his expression grave. The truth about your parents. The truth about their deaths. The truth about why I left you with the Dursleys and why I have watched you from afar all these years. Harry felt his heart clench. His parents. He had never known them, had never even seen a picture of them. The Dursleys had refused to speak of them, had forbidden any mention of their names. All Harry knew was that they had died, and that he had been left with the cruelest people he had ever known. What about my parents? Harry asked, his voice barely a whisper. Dumbledore was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak, his voice soft and filled with a sadness that seemed to echo through the centuries. Your parents, James and Lily Potter, were two of the bravest people I have ever known. They were members of the Order of the Phoenix, fighting against Lord Voldemort and his followers. They knew the danger, knew the risks, but they never wavered in their commitment to the cause. Harry listened, his heart pounding. He had never heard anyone speak of his parents like this before. On the night they died, Voldemort came to your home in Godric's Hollow. He was seeking you, Harry. He had heard a prophecy that said a child born at the end of the 7th month would have the power to defeat him. He believed that child was you. Harry's eyes widened. A prophecy? About me? Yes, Dumbledore said. A prophecy that said you would have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. Your parents knew the danger. They went into hiding, protected by a powerful spell called the Fidelius Charm. But they were betrayed. A friend, someone they trusted, gave Voldemort their location. Harry felt a surge of anger. Who? Who betrayed them? Dumbledore's expression was pained. His name was Peter Pettigrew. He was a friend of your father's, a member of the Order. He was also a spy for Voldemort. He sold your parents to save his own skin. Harry's hands clenched into fists. And what happened to him? Did he face justice? Dumbledore shook his head. He escaped. He is still out there, somewhere, hiding. But that is not the only truth you need to know, Harry. What else is there? Dumbledore met his gaze, his eyes filled with a sorrow that was both ancient and personal. I left you with the Dursleys because I believed it was the safest place for you. Your mother's sacrifice, her love, created a powerful protection that would keep you safe as long as you called that place home. I thought I was protecting you. But I was wrong. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. What do you mean? I should have been there for you, Harry. I should have checked on you, made sure you were being treated with love and kindness. I was so focused on the threat of Voldemort, on the prophecy, on the larger picture, that I forgot to look at the smaller one. I forgot to see the boy. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. It wasn't your fault. The Dursleys, they were horrible. But I survived. I'm here. And I'm strong. Dumbledore shook his head. You survived despite the Dursleys, not because of them. And you are strong because you chose to be, not because anyone helped you. I failed you, Harry. And I am so sorry. Harry looked at the old wizard, at the tears that were glistening in his ancient eyes, and felt something shift in his heart. The anger was still there, the pain of years of neglect and cruelty, but there was something else too. Something that felt like forgiveness. You were trying to protect me, Harry said slowly. You made a mistake. But you're here now. And you're telling me the truth. That means something. Dumbledore nodded, his voice hoarse. It means everything, Harry. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for my mistakes. I will do everything in my power to help you, to guide you, to protect you. If you will let me. Harry looked at Midnight, who had been silent throughout the conversation. The dragon's eyes were fixed on him, filled with love and trust. It's your choice, Harry, Midnight said softly in his mind. You don't have to forgive him. You don't have to trust him. But you should know that he is sincere. He genuinely wants to help. Harry nodded, turning back to Dumbledore. Okay, he said. I'll trust you. But I'll be watching. And if you ever betray me, if you ever put the dragons or Midnight or anyone I love in danger. I understand, Dumbledore said quickly. And I accept your terms. I will prove myself worthy of your trust, Harry. I promise. Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had been carrying so much anger, so much pain, for so long. It felt good to let some of it go. Now, he said, his voice businesslike, tell me more about this prophecy. And tell me how I can stop Voldemort. The conversation lasted well into the night. Dumbledore spoke of the prophecy, of the power that Harry held, of the connection between him and Voldemort. He spoke of the Horcruxes, the dark objects that Voldemort had created to achieve immortality. He spoke of the war that was coming, the battle that would decide the fate of the magical world. And Harry listened, absorbing everything, his mind racing with plans and strategies. I know it's a lot to take in, Dumbledore said, as the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows. But you are not alone, Harry. You have the dragons. You have the Order. And you have me. Harry nodded, his heart filled with a new sense of purpose. I can do this. I know I can. I believe you, Dumbledore said. Now tell me about the Dragon Council. Tell me about the crown. Tell me everything I need to know. And Harry did. He told Dumbledore about the sanctuary, about Merlin, about the trials and the coronation. He told him about the dragons who had awakened, who had come to him seeking leadership. He told him about the dragon hunters, the dark wizards, the forces that were gathering against him. Dumbledore listened, his expression growing more and more grave. You have accomplished more in a few months than most wizards accomplish in a lifetime, Harry. But you must be careful. The powers you are awakening are ancient, and they draw attention. There are those who will stop at nothing to destroy you. Then let them come, Harry said, his voice fierce. I'll be ready for them. Of that I have no doubt, Dumbledore said. But you must also be ready for something else. The dragons are powerful, but they are not invincible. The dragon hunters have been perfecting their craft for centuries. They know how to hurt dragons, how to kill them. You must learn to protect yourself and your allies. I will, Harry said. I'll learn everything I can. Dumbledore nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. I believe you will, Harry. I believe you will. Dumbledore left the castle that afternoon, his departure marked by a promise to return soon. Harry stood on the ramparts, watching the old wizard disappear over the horizon, his heart filled with a complicated mixture of emotions. He was angry, still, at the years of neglect and loneliness. He was grateful, too, for the help Dumbledore had given him. And he was hopeful, more hopeful than he had ever been, that the future could be different. Are you okay? Midnight asked, pressing against him. I'm not sure, Harry admitted. There's so much I didn't know. So much I still don't know. But I'm trying. I'm trying to understand, to forgive, to move forward. That's all anyone can do, Midnight said. And you're doing it well. Harry smiled, leaning against her. Thank you, Midnight. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'll never have to find out, she said. I'm not going anywhere. The weeks that followed were filled with preparation. Harry trained with the dragons, honing his skills and strengthening the bond. He studied the ancient texts, learning everything he could about the dragon hunters, about Voldemort, about the forces that threatened the magical world. And he thought about Dumbledore, about the truth the old wizard had shared, about the years of pain and neglect that had shaped his childhood. It was hard to let go of the anger, hard to forgive the years of loneliness. But Harry was trying. He was trying to be better, to be stronger, to be the rider the world needed him to be. One day, he said to Midnight, as they flew over the castle, "I'm going to make things right. I'm going to protect the dragons, protect the magical world, protect everyone I love. I'm going to be the rider Merlin believed I could be." "You already are," Midnight said. "You just have to believe it." Harry smiled, the wind whipping through his hair. "I believe it. I believe it now." The sun set over the castle, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Harry and Midnight soared through the clouds, their bond pulsing with the power of 1,000 years of history. The world was dangerous, uncertain, full of challenges and enemies. But Harry was ready. He was the last rider. And he would not fail. The next morning, Harry woke to find a letter waiting for him. It was from Dumbledore, written in the old wizard's elegant script. "Dear Harry, I have spoken with the Order of the Phoenix. They are eager to meet you, to stand with you in the fight against the darkness. I have arranged a gathering at my office in Hogwarts. Please come when you are ready. I have also learned something troubling. The dragon hunters have been spotted in the Scottish Highlands. They are searching for something they believe will give them power over the dragons. I suspect they are looking for the lost dragon eggs, ancient artifacts that hold the key to controlling the dragons. We must act quickly. The eggs must be found before the hunters get their hands on them. Yours, Albus Dumbledore." Harry read the letter, his heart pounding. The lost dragon eggs. He had heard of them, read about them in the ancient texts. They were powerful artifacts, imbued with the magic of the first riders. If the dragon hunters found them, they could use them to control the dragons, to turn them into weapons of destruction. "We have to stop them," Harry said, showing the letter to Midnight. "We have to find the eggs before they do." "Then we will," Midnight said. "We will find them, protect them, and use them to unite the dragons even further." Harry nodded, his eyes blazing with determination. "Let's go. Hogwarts is waiting for us." The flight to Hogwarts was long but uneventful. Harry and Midnight flew through the night, the stars guiding their way. When they finally arrived, the castle was bathed in the pale light of dawn, its towers and spires reaching toward the sky like fingers of stone. Harry landed in the courtyard, Midnight's claws scraping against the cobblestones. The students were still asleep, the halls empty and silent. But Harry could feel the magic of the castle, ancient and powerful, pulsing beneath his feet. "Welcome to Hogwarts," he whispered, his heart filled with awe. "I'm finally here." "Not yet," Midnight said, a note of amusement in her voice. "But you will be. Soon." Harry smiled, and together they walked toward the entrance. The doors swung open, revealing the vast entrance hall, the marble staircase, the moving portraits that watched them with curious eyes. Dumbledore was waiting for them in the great hall. The tables were empty, the candles floating silently overhead. The old wizard stood at the center of the room, his arms open wide. "Welcome, Harry," Dumbledore said, his voice warm. "Welcome to Hogwarts." Harry stepped forward, the crown on his head gleaming in the candlelight. "Thank you, Professor. It's good to be here." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "The Order is waiting. They are eager to meet you. But first, there is something I must show you." "What is it?" Dumbledore's expression grew serious. "The truth about the lost dragon eggs. And the truth about the war that is coming." Harry felt his heart pound, but he refused to show his fear. "Show me." Dumbledore nodded, and together they walked through the halls of Hogwarts. The castle was a labyrinth of secrets, its walls filled with magic and history. And at the center of it all, hidden from the eyes of the world, lay the greatest secret of all: the future of the Dragon Riders. Chapter 10 Attack of the Dragon Hunters. The truth about the lost dragon eggs was more terrifying than Harry had imagined. Deep within the bowels of Hogwarts, in a chamber that had been sealed for centuries, Dumbledore revealed the ancient knowledge that had been hidden from the world. The eggs were not just artifacts, they were the keys to controlling the dragons themselves. In the wrong hands, they could be used to enslave every dragon in existence, bending them to the will of darkness. The first riders created the eggs as a safeguard, Dumbledore explained, his voice echoing in the dim chamber. They feared that one day, the bond between dragons and wizards might be corrupted. The eggs were designed to provide a way to protect the dragons, to shield them from those who would use them for evil. But the spell was flawed. In the wrong hands, the eggs could be used to control the dragons, to strip them of their free will. Harry felt a cold knot form in his stomach. And the dragon hunters know about them? They know enough, Dumbledore said. They have been searching for the eggs for centuries. Now, with your awakening, they have grown desperate. They believe that the eggs hold the key to defeating you, to controlling the dragons and using them to destroy the magical world. We have to find the eggs before they do, Harry said, his voice fierce. We have to protect them. Dumbledore nodded. I have already dispatched members of the Order to search for the eggs. But we are not the only ones looking. The dragon hunters have spies everywhere. We must be careful, Harry. We must be smart. Harry looked at Midnight, her silver eyes fixed on the ancient texts that lined the chamber walls. Do you know where the eggs are? Midnight was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I can feel them. The bond connects me to all dragons, to all dragon magic. The eggs are old ancient, but they are still connected to the magic of the first riders. I can sense them, like a distant hum. Can you find them? Midnight's eyes glowed with determination. I can try. The search for the lost dragon eggs consumed the next several days. Harry and Midnight traveled across Britain, following the threads of ancient magic that pulsed through the bond. They flew over mountains and valleys, through forests and across seas, their journey taking them to places that had not been visited by wizards in centuries. The first egg was hidden in a cave deep beneath the Scottish Highlands. The entrance was sealed with powerful wards, but Harry's bond with Midnight allowed him to break through, the runes on his arm blazing with silver fire. Inside the cave, they found a chamber filled with ancient artifacts, and at its center, resting on a pedestal of black stone, was the egg. It was beautiful, its surface shimmering with a light that seemed to come from within. Harry reached out, his fingers brushing against the smooth surface, and felt a surge of power rush through him. It's real, he whispered. It's actually real. Midnight pressed against him, her warmth seeping into his bones. We found it, Harry. We found the first egg. Harry carefully wrapped the egg in a cloth, his hands trembling with a mixture of excitement and fear. One down. How many more are there? There are 12 in total, Midnight said. 12 eggs, hidden across the magical world. We must find them all before the dragon hunters do. Harry nodded, his eyes blazing with determination. Then let's not waste any time. Let's find the rest. The search continued, each egg presenting its own unique challenges. Some were hidden in enchanted forests, protected by creatures that had been tasked with guarding them for centuries. Others were buried deep within ancient ruins, their locations marked by runes that only a rider could read. Harry and Midnight faced traps and guardians, puzzles and trials, each one testing their bond and their resolve. But they were not alone in their quest. The dragon hunters were closing in, their agents appearing at every turn. Harry could feel their presence, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to follow them wherever they went. They're getting closer, Harry said one night, as he and Midnight rested in a hidden glade. I can feel them. They know we're searching for the eggs, Midnight said. They're trying to intercept us. Then we'll have to be faster, Harry said. We'll have to find the eggs before they do. The next egg was hidden in a cavern beneath the Irish Sea, its entrance accessible only at low tide. Harry and Midnight dove beneath the waves, their bond protecting them from the crushing pressure and the freezing cold. They swam through underwater tunnels, their path lit by the glow of the runes on Harry's arm. The chamber was vast, its walls covered in ancient carvings. And at its center, resting on a bed of coral, was the second egg. Harry reached for it, his fingers closing around the smooth surface. But as he touched the egg, he felt a surge of dark magic, a trap triggered by his presence. "Midnight!" Harry shouted, but it was too late. The chamber began to collapse, rocks falling from the ceiling, water rushing in from all sides. Harry held the egg close to his chest, his heart pounding. Midnight moved quickly, her massive body shielding him from the falling debris. Together they swam back through the tunnels, the darkness closing in around them. They emerged gasping on the surface, the waves crashing around them. Harry clutched the egg to his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "We made it!" he gasped. "We made it!" But even as he spoke, he saw them, the dragon hunters, waiting on the shore. There were a dozen of them, their wands raised, their eyes fixed on Harry and the egg. "Give us the egg, boy," one of them snarled. "Give us the egg, and we'll let you live." Harry's grip on the egg tightened. "Never!" The hunters advanced, their spells flying toward him. Harry raised his hand, the runes on his arm blazing with silver fire. A shield erupted around him, deflecting the spells, but he was outnumbered, outmatched, and exhausted. "Midnight!" Harry shouted, and the dragon responded immediately. She rose from the water, her wings spread wide, a roar of fury erupting from her throat. The hunters stumbled back, their eyes wide with fear. But they recovered quickly, their wands trained on the dragon. "Kill the beast!" one of them shouted. "Kill them both!" Harry felt a surge of rage. They would not hurt Midnight. They would not hurt the dragons. He would die before he let that happen. He closed his eyes, reaching deep into the bond. The power of the first riders surged through him, ancient and immense. He opened his eyes, and the world seemed to slow around him. "Get out of here," he said, his voice echoing with a power that was not entirely his own. "Get out, and never come back." The hunters froze, their eyes filled with terror. The power radiating from Harry was overwhelming, too much for them to bear. They turned and fled, disappearing into the darkness of the night. Harry stood on the shore, his body shaking with the effort of containing the power. Midnight pressed against him, her warmth steadying him. "You did it, Harry," she said. "You drove them away." Harry nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "We did it. Together." They flew away from the shore, the second egg safe in Harry's hands. But the encounter had shaken him, had shown him how close they had come to losing everything. "We can't keep doing this," Harry said, as they flew through the night. "We can't keep fighting them alone. We need allies." "We have allies," Midnight said. "The dragons, the Order, the House Elves. They will help us." Harry nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. "I hope you're right." The third egg was hidden in the heart of the Forbidden Forest, protected by a colony of acromantulas that had been tasked with guarding it for centuries. Harry and Midnight approached cautiously, their bond thrumming with tension. "They're not going to just give us the egg," Harry said. "They've been guarding it for centuries. They're not going to let it go easily." "We'll have to convince them," Midnight said. "We'll have to show them that we're worthy of it." Harry took a deep breath and stepped into the clearing. The acromantulas emerged from the shadows, their 8 legs clicking against the ground. Their leader, a massive creature with eyes that gleamed with ancient intelligence, stepped forward. "Who are you?" the acromantula asked, its voice a low hiss. "Why have you come to our territory?" "I am Harry Potter," Harry said, his voice steady. "The last rider. I have come for the dragon egg." The acromantula's eyes narrowed. "The last rider? The one who has been gathering the ancient eggs?" "Yes," Harry said. "The dragon hunters are after them. They want to use them to control the dragons, to destroy the magical world." I need the eggs to protect them, to keep them safe. The Acromantula was silent for a long moment. Then it said, We have guarded this egg for centuries. We have lost many of our kin to those who sought to take it. Why should we trust you? Harry met the creature's gaze, his heart pounding. Because I am not like the others. I am not trying to use the egg for power. I am trying to protect it. I am trying to protect the dragons, the magical world, everyone who is threatened by the darkness. The Acromantula's expression shifted, something like respect flickering in its ancient eyes. You speak with conviction, Ryder. We will allow you to take the egg. But know this, if you betray us, if you use the egg for evil, we will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Harry nodded. I understand. And I accept your terms. The Acromantula stepped aside, revealing the third egg, resting on a bed of silk. Harry approached, his hands trembling, and lifted the egg from its resting place. Thank you, he said. Thank you for trusting me. The Acromantula inclined its head. Go, Ryder. And may your quest succeed. The remaining eggs were found in rapid succession, each one presenting its own unique challenges and dangers. Harry and Midnight faced everything from enchanted mazes to ancient guardians, their bond growing stronger with each trial. By the time they had recovered the eighth egg, Harry was exhausted, his body and mind pushed to their limits. We need to rest, Midnight said, as they flew over the English countryside. You're too tired to keep going. I can't stop, Harry said, his voice filled with desperation. The dragon hunters are still out there. They're still searching for the eggs. If I stop, they might find them first. We can't protect the eggs if we're too exhausted to fight, Midnight said. We need to rest. We need to recover. Then we can continue the search. Harry wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. His body was screaming for rest, his mind clouded with exhaustion. He reluctantly agreed, and they landed in a small, secluded clearing, hidden from the eyes of the world. You rest, Midnight said, curling around him. I'll keep watch. Harry closed his eyes, and sleep claimed him almost instantly. He was woken by Midnight's urgent voice. Harry! Harry, wake up! Harry's eyes flew open, and his heart seized in his chest. The clearing was surrounded. Dragon hunters, dozens of them, their wands raised, their eyes fixed on him and Midnight. The eggs, the lead hunter said, his voice cold and triumphant. Give us the eggs, boy, or we will take them from your dead body. Harry scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. The eggs were in his pack, the 8 they had found so far. He couldn't let them fall into the hunter's hands. Never, Harry said, his voice steady despite his fear. You'll never get the eggs. The hunter laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Then you'll die. The spells flew toward him, and Harry raised his shield, the runes on his arm blazing. But there were too many hunters, too many spells. His shield began to crack, the pressure too great to withstand. Midnight! Harry shouted, and the dragon lunged forward, her claws and teeth tearing through the hunters. But there were too many of them, their spells raining down on her, wounds appearing on her scales. Harry felt her pain through the bond, a white-hot agony that nearly made him collapse. No! Midnight! He pushed himself to his feet, the power of the first rider surging through him. He raised his hands, and a wave of silver light erupted from him, knocking the hunters off their feet. But more kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Harry! Midnight's voice was urgent. We have to go! We can't fight them all! Harry looked at the fallen hunters, at the ones still advancing, and knew she was right. He climbed onto Midnight's back, clutching the pack of eggs to his chest. Geo! He shouted. Midnight launched into the sky, her wings beating furiously. The hunters' spells flew after them, but they were already too high, too fast. Harry looked down at the clearing, at the hunters who were shaking their fists at the sky. We'll be back, he whispered. We'll find the rest of the eggs. And we'll stop you. I promise. They flew through the night, the wind whipping against Harry's face. The eggs were safe, but the encounter had cost them. Midnight was wounded, her scales cracked and bleeding. Harry's own body was battered and bruised, his magic drained. "We need to find a safe place to rest," Harry said. "We need to heal." "The castle," Midnight said. "We need to go back to the castle." Harry nodded, and together they flew toward the sanctuary, their bond pulsing with a desperate hope. The journey back to the castle was long and difficult. Midnight's wounds made flying painful, and Harry could feel her struggle through the bond. He spoke to her constantly, his voice a steady anchor in the darkness. "You're doing great," he said. "We're almost there. I can see the castle." "I know," Midnight replied, her voice strained. "I can see it too." They landed in the courtyard, and Dobby rushed out to meet them, his eyes wide with concern. "Harry Potter! Midnight! What happened? You is hurt." "We were attacked by dragon hunters," Harry said, sliding off Midnight's back. "They cornered us in the clearing. We barely escaped." Dobby's face paled. "The eggs. Did they get the eggs?" Harry held up the pack. "They're safe. We managed to protect them." "Dobby is so relieved," the house elf said. "Come, come. We must tend to Midnight's wounds. We must make sure she is okay." Harry helped Dobby move Midnight into the castle, where the house elves had already prepared a bed of soft moss and healing herbs. They worked quickly, cleaning her wounds and applying poultices that would speed the healing. "She will be fine," Dobby said, his voice filled with relief. "The wounds is not deep. She will recover." Harry sagged with relief. "Thank you, Dobby. Thank you for everything." "Dobby is happy to help, Harry Potter," the elf said. "Dobby will always help." Harry sat beside Midnight, his hand resting on her head. She was sleeping now, her breathing steady, her wounds already beginning to heal. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have been more careful. I should have protected you." "We protected each other," Midnight murmured, her voice soft in his mind. "That's what we do." Harry smiled, a tear sliding down his cheek. "We do. And we'll keep doing it. No matter what." The next few days were spent recovering. Harry tended to Midnight's wounds, making sure she was healing properly. He also studied the eggs, learning more about their magic and their history. The eggs were more than just artifacts, they were living things, containing the potential for new life, new dragons. Harry could feel them pulsing with a faint, warm magic, a promise of the future. "These eggs are the key to everything," Harry said one night, as he sat beside Midnight. "They could be used to create new dragons, to strengthen the bond between dragons and wizards. They could be used to build a new order of riders. But only if they're protected," Midnight said. "Only if the dragon hunters don't get their hands on them." Harry nodded, his eyes blazing with determination. "I won't let them. I'll protect these eggs with my life." The eggs seemed to pulse in response, their glow intensifying for just a moment. Harry felt a connection to them, a bond that was different from the one he shared with Midnight but just as powerful. "I don't know what we'll do next," Harry admitted. "But I know one thing, we'll never give up. We'll never stop fighting." "That's what makes you a true rider," Midnight said. "That's what makes you the supreme rider." Harry smiled, resting his head against her side. "Together. Always. Always," Midnight agreed. The morning brought a letter from Dumbledore, carried by a magnificent eagle owl. Harry opened it, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. "Dear Harry, I have received word that the dragon hunters are planning a major attack. They have discovered the location of the final 4 eggs, and they intend to take them by force. They are gathering their forces for a massive assault on the castle. You must be prepared, Harry. The hunters will not stop until they have the eggs. You must defend the castle and the eggs with everything you have. I will send reinforcements. The order will come. But you must hold out until they arrive. Yours, Albus Dumbledore." Harry read the letter, his heart sinking. The dragon hunters were coming. They were going to attack the castle. And they would stop at nothing to get the eggs. We need to prepare, Harry said, his voice calm. We need to get ready for battle. Midnight rose, her wounds fully healed, her eyes blazing with determination. We will fight them together. We will protect the eggs. Harry nodded, his hands clenching into fists. Let's get ready. The days that followed were filled with preparation. Harry worked with the house elves to reinforce the castle's wards. He trained with the dragons, practicing combat maneuvers and defensive strategies. He studied the ancient texts, learning everything he could about the dragon hunters and their weaknesses. And he waited. The attack came on the night of the new moon, the darkness providing cover for the hunters' approach. Harry stood on the ramparts, Midnight at his side, watching as the shadows began to move. They're here, he said, his voice steady. They're here. The hunters emerged from the darkness, dozens of them, their wands raised. They launched spells at the castle, their magic slamming against the wards in a relentless assault. Hold! Harry shouted. Hold the line! The dragons rose from the castle, their wings spread wide. They attacked the hunters, their claws and teeth tearing through the enemy ranks. But the hunters were prepared, their spells designed to target dragons, to bring them down. Harry felt the pain of the dragons through the bond, felt their fear and their determination. He channeled his own power into the bond, amplifying their magic, giving them the strength to fight on. For the riders! He shouted. For the dragons! He launched himself into the fray, Midnight beneath him, the crown blazing on his head. He cast spells of immense power, protecting the dragons, defending the castle. The hunters fell before him, their numbers dwindling with each passing moment. But there were too many of them. They kept coming, their assault relentless. And then, just when it seemed like all was lost, reinforcements arrived. The Order of the Phoenix appeared, their spells striking the hunters from behind. Dumbledore was at their head, his eyes blazing with ancient power. Hold on, Harry! Dumbledore shouted. We're here to help. Harry felt a surge of hope. The tides of battle were turning. The hunters were retreating, their numbers decimated by the combined forces of the dragons and the Order. Don't let them get away! Harry shouted. Chase them down! The dragons pursued the fleeing hunters, their roars echoing through the night. Harry looked at the battlefield, at the bodies of the fallen, at the castle that had been defended, at the eggs that were safe. We did it, he said, his voice barely a whisper. We won. Midnight pressed against him, her warmth seeping into his bones. We did it, Harry. We protected the eggs. We protected the castle. Harry nodded, a smile spreading across his face. We did it. Together. Dumbledore approached, his expression grave but proud. You have done well, Harry. The dragon hunters will not soon forget this defeat. Good, Harry said. Let them remember. Let them remember that the last rider will not be defeated. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. I think they have learned that lesson well. Harry looked out at the battlefield, at the dragons who had fought beside him, at the allies who had come to his aid. He was no longer alone. He would never be alone again. Let's go home, he said. Let's go home and prepare for what comes next. The sun rose over the castle, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Harry stood on the ramparts, Midnight at his side, his heart filled with a new sense of purpose. The battle had been won, but the war was only beginning. He would face it with courage, with determination, with the unshakable belief that he could make a difference. He was the last rider. And he would never give up. Thank you,